George
happened?
Lucas would have any pushback about that.
Right.
No,
Oh.
I'm surprised by
As
the
a
way
Spielberg
Well,
movie.
that's George Lucas had like all of the licensing for the
Right.
toys, and like that's how he
Like
made,
he knew he
that's
was
how
making this
made
for
his
toys.
nut.
Oh
was
yeah,
off of
I think
toys.
he's pretty open about that too. now.
Yeah,
Well, they never
because it's a
make that
great idea for business.
It's in Spaceballs.
and they'll
Yeah.
never make that kind of.
Yeah,
toy.
He's like merchandising.
And he's right.
Yeah.
And then the
Baseball.
second,
Can I have a
Pretty
little
good.
bit of
And then,
top
like,
I
off from
love
that?
Spaceballs.
Yeah.
so the first
Yeah.
movie
You,
is
you
like,
want to pour? Or you want me to?
I got it.
Okay.
or the
thank
first three movies are like
you so
inextricable
much.
with these like toy decisions.
Sorry, I'm
that
drinking
get
your
made.
coffee.
And then
Thank
the-
No, it's fine. I don't.
The
It's
next
not
trilogy that
about
comes
that.
out,
It
you
just
have
takes
the
a while
whole
to make this much
Jar
coffee.
Jar
I don't have a
thing.
good system for
where,
like
they have
bulk
to go
coffee.
I was just saying that
Yeah.
because
do
I
a
thought
right
it was
turn
funny
to
to
get the
say.
Jar
Okay.
Jar.
The podcast, the pottery.
I don't
things,
mind
too,
doing it.
like,
I just
they-
don't want
they
it to be
clearly-
every
Yeah.
time.
it was made
I
for
Hot
don't
pot
mind-
of coffee.
I don't mind it either,
And then the new ones come
but
out.
I
and
just
do this
don't
whole
want
meta
to be the one who
switch around
dumps the
because
coffee
people
out
don't
because
like
I feel
it.
bad.
It's like,
Yeah.
there's no
I'll do
Star
it.
Wars
I'll have.
without
You
this
can leave
Yeah.
it here
Jen will
and
pour it out.
not and
Okay.
not
Part
know
of
what
the whole
happened.
thing of
Also,
it is
Kenny would
clearly
probably
that the
drink
world
more
Also,
of it. Like Kenny.
changes where
Do
Kenny would
plants
probably
like
drink
it?
it.
Someone told me
in
plants
bad
like it, but I don't know if I
ways.
believe it.
Every time it's like a bad
Um,
choice.
Yeah, they got real bad.
What
I
Star
don't
Wars?
know.
Yeah.
Well,
Not-
yeah, and
not
no,
a-
that
not a
when,
lot of it.
when the
Maybe a little
outside
bit,
world
but not a
impacts
lot
it,
of
which it always does in every trilogy,
Plants
it's
like-
always for
there's
the
plant-
worst.
plants
That's
already
why
have
Star
Kenny
stories
has
Wars-
I
this
like.
customer where the trees
Sure.
were all
I
still
don't.
kind of
I
like
don't feel that
unhealthy,
Star
and they
Wars
went to go
is
look at
all
them, and they
about
just
Star Wars.
dumping
No.
their coffee grounds
Yeah.
But
into
people
this
pretend
tree
it.
for like forever.
Sure.
And it was just like,
Or maybe people
like you
think
put them in the
because there is a
compost, and
story,
then they kind of, like
it
they're
must-
good for compost.
the
So
story-
Yeah,
you
it
don't
just
put them
seems
like
like
directly
it would just
on-
rot, right?
on the plant.
It's
Trees?
just like too acidic or something. It just changes the pH of the soil. I'm guessing.
You still talking about Star Wars?
Yes.
It definitely
Yes.
changed the pH of my soil.
When you talk about fandoms, I feel like
It's too much
when you
going
say that,
on.
I mean, when you
fandoms
shit your
are a lot
pants.
like armies, in that the corporation wants to mobilize it and use it to do things the corporation can't do themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Then at a certain point, history happens where the army says, this corporation's not being run correctly, we're taking it over.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we're gonna see fandom coups where they end up becoming the CEO.
We have already.
Of course.
It's begun. It's.
Yeah.
I really feel like it's begun.
Well, welcome to the most chaotic intro to this web,
Oh,
web series
are
that we've
we
ever
in?
done. Yeah,
We plugged in.
it's okay. I shouldn't have started
Maybe
in
I'll
mid
have a
Star
chat
Wars
then.
conversation. That's
Star Wars.
Merci beaucoup.
I saw Luke.
But we started talking about fandoms being
And Chewie!
Yeah, our friend.
becoming more. How are they gonna overtake the corporations that create the thing they like?
That's all right. Our fans don't join until I think some of them get an email alert that's like
Our fans.
the last. I think the
friends.
last
There are
time we
two
were
or
on,
three.
we had like three
They're
three
our
people.
friends.
Yeah.
Our
They are our friends.
They're our friends. They're our long
they're
distance
not here yet,
stranger
so we don't-
friends who we don't know who they are.
They're definitely not Mark Harry.
We don't have to blow smoke up there.
Definitely not.
I think one of them is.
No.
They all are.
might all
Definitely.
three
They
of
all
them.
are.
I mean,
He's got 3 computers set up where he's like having these conversations.
He's also getting married soon, I believe.
Well, good for him.
Yeah.
Good,
I'm
yes.
getting married
Congratulations
on March
to him.
14th.
Wow.
Where?
What?
March
The
14th.
court.
That's like fucking tomorrow.
way sooner.
That's
Very
cool.
soon.
It is very
That's
cool.
cool, man.
It's next week.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah.
L'chaim.
Enjoy.
That'd be fun.
Mazel
Getting-
tov.
Getting married in the courthouse is a cool vibe.
Are you gonna smooch her?
I am gonna kiss her for the first time.
my
Finally.
God.
Yeah.
Wow, beautiful.
About time.
That's right.
Finally, she'll let you sleep in the same bed with her.
That's right. This whore's gone straight.
No, you have to have the two. No, you have to have the two separate
The I
twin
love
beds.
Lucy
Yeah.
beds. Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't have enough room in our
the
house.
two separate twin
That's
beds on the
after you
other
get
side of the
married.
room.
That's after you get married. You start
That's what I'm
sleeping.
saying. Yeah.
Oh.
I've just been curled up at the foot of the bed so far.
You gotta sleep in the rabbit room.
Yeah.
Just on the floor.
Rabbits don't sleep, man.
Yeah.
They just take that room apart all night long.
They get a whole room.
Yeah, they get their own room.
They have like you have
3.
3 rabbits.
They get busy.
Little
Yeah, like we put up a fence so that they can't eat the baseboards, and they take the fence down so they can.
Are they eager?
So
Yeah.
ingenuitive.
Yeah, they love it.
Coffee went straight into my brain.
It's also burrowing season, so
It like really went into it. It's in my brain.
Cheers to you.
Hell yeah. Thank you.
It didn't go anywhere else.
Mm-mm.
what happened?
The coffee went straight into my brain.
Oh, nice.
I tried to make it kind of strong so everyone would get their hit.
Yeah.
You don't have to make more of it.
Well, it's just it just takes a long time.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
It's time consuming.
Cool.
This is like
yeah.
They should make like a instant coffee.
someone could. Kenny used to be like all
I don't think I've-
instant coffee
I
all
don't
the
think
time.
I've ever had instant coffee.
It's very bad.
Doesn't
It's
seem like
kind
it.
of good in its way. I don't know. I kind of like it.
Probably.
I mean, it's
not always bad.
it's a different flavor. It's an entirely different.
I don't mind it. Kenny would have the Folgers crystals or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like kind of good in a way.
Bigger bean, and it has more caffeine.
Taster's choice is like
The only thing I know about instant coffee is that there's this guy on YouTube, Steve 1989 MRE Info, who is a guy who definitely lives in Florida, and he collects and eats vintage
Oh yeah,
rations.
I've heard about that.
Oh,
and he's
MRE.
really into. So he's got all these
Like
military
old
rations.
spoiled food.
Yeah, and he loves the instant coffee that's in all, which is always called coffee instant, in these like military rations.
Right.
Yeah, and he's like, oh yeah, it's great coffee instant. He loves the old cigarettes. Like
Oh.
he'll have this like instant coffee and like an 80-year-old cigarette. He's
like-
really excited
I
about it.
want old coffee and an 80-year-old cigarette. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, he's also gotten botulism like 6 times.
Yeah,
Nice.
he just eats the fucked up old
Like
food.
his,
But you're
like
not gonna get-
you watch
not
his
from
hands a
the
lot, and they have
cigarette, though.
tremors. Like he's not doing great.
Not from a cigarette though.
Not from the cigarette.
Yeah.
It's from like the cans of like
Yeah.
weird
mean,
goop that he.
I want the
opens and
cigarette.
A cigarette would never go wrong on you like that.
Go
Not
wrong
like
on
that.
you for many other
Yeah, I don't-
ways.
I don't
It'd
know
be
what the
sta-
shelf life.
I
of
feel like
a
it would just be
cigarette-
stale.
Yeah, I think it's just really stale. Because it's already.
It'd be
it's
just
already
like
dry,
smoking a piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
It'd
But
be gross.
he's really into it. he's like, yeah, they just don't make smokes like this anymore.
Well, it's like he's like it's like he's got something that's like a bit like a like 60-year-old like slime in a can or whatever, and he's just like, there's no other flavor like
Madison
this.
was-
Like there's
yeah.
nothing else like this.
Madison was really into watching it for a while, and I had to stop. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It just feels so. Well, a lot of it's because he's like unwrapping these things like right next to a microphone, and so there's
It's like
this,
ASMR.
there's an ASMR thing which just makes me mad. So
ASMR makes you mad.
yeah, I can't do it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I can watch a video of somebody
Makes
grinding.
you anxious.
I can watch a video of somebody like grinding metal for like 20 minutes, but I cannot watch somebody like softly
Yeah.
crinkling plastic or something. Like, it just doesn't
How do you
work.
feel when someone lightly touches the back of your neck?
I don't know. I got all
They
this,
can't.
I got all this hair. Yeah, it doesn't really
They-
happen.
But you don't always have. We know that you don't always have it. I've seen you not have it.
There's video.
But he
evidence of me
does,
not
like-
having it.
Now he does.
Yes.
I don't know. I think if it'd be a surprise. I don't really like sudden ear stimulation.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that can really like
Who
freak me out.
does?
Yeah,
I like
Yeah. Who likes
Ear
just
is a
being around
sensitive
and
place.
someone
Who wants to be
grabs your
surprised
ear?
I just
from
I
friends,
yeah, I have very
even
sensitive
gently.
ears. So yeah.
Tim keeps his covered up
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
wraps.
Yeah.
No touch.
Don't
You
fuck
heard
with
about
ears.
that little kid who's suing her school because she has like a reaction. She has like the dyspopia or something, some kind of thing where she has really strong reactions to certain audio stimulus, including people eating or chewing
Is it
gum.
misophonia?
Yeah, that's it. So she's suing the school because they want to prevent kids from eating and chewing gum throughout the entire school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, like that kind of shit bothers me too, but like I'm not.
It's like
It's, at some point, you just gotta live with it.
so I was reading about it, and the person that was commenting on it was saying it's like the first example of what happened with like masking and COVID regulations being moved into like the into the rest of the post-plague world.
I don't know.
We're like we-
constant vigilance for any.
Yeah, or like we said, like we got everyone to wear masks even if they didn't want to for safety and health reasons. So now
Right.
we're going to be able.
What
to
else can we do?
Yeah. So that's
But
it.
they couldn't get everyone to wear a mask.
Yeah,
They
really didn't.
I think that
It didn't happen
people.
at
I think
all.
depending on where
But
you're sitting,
a
some people saw it as
large
a victory.
number, a
Yeah.
large number of
They're
people
gonna
did.
try, but they were trying already. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It sounds kind of like a garbagey situation to me.
That's one of those things where like you can't prevent people from eating.
Yeah.
That's just like
Or to sue
Well, in
because
school,
of
though, a lot of
eating
schools
in the
do
school. It
prevent
just
people from
doesn't.
eating and
You
chewing
can't prevent
gum
kids from doing anything.
in
yeah.
school.
I guess,
like
yeah, I mean,
that
I
was
guess you're
normal
not
in my
supposed to be
school.
eating
We
in
weren't
class and
we
stuff,
weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
I know kids can now, and kids in other schools could, but we could like only have water.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
we weren't supposed to like chew gum. Or...
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, we could chew gum in my high school.
It was teacher to
I went to a
teacher in
cool
my
high
school, and in American history, I would always have Skittles, and Mr. Ventura would be like, "Connor, do you have candy in class?" And I'd say, "Would you like a Skittle, Mr. Ventura?" And then he'd have one, and I'd finish my thing of Skittles.
The tax.
Yeah,
He would have one.
yeah,
One.
because it was the principle. It was
A
he's
Skittle.
like, if you're gonna fucking break the rules, pay me. It was not
The
about how
tax.
he didn't like Skittles.
The
I'm
tax.
sure.
He just takes a single
No, he doesn't like
Skittle.
Skittles. He likes a Skittle of,
He-
of yours.
He likes getting a piece of
Yes.
whatever action it is that I got going on.
Yeah, yeah. The action. Let me get in on that action.
Yeah.
Kaiser.
You moving some candy? I want some of
Would
that.
he even like take note of the color, or would he just take any?
This
of
is
them?
my
No, he
block.
My
Just give me a
experience
Skittle.
with
Yeah.
High school kids too now is if you tell them, hey, you're breaking a rule, no matter what it is, and no matter what the context is, they always immediately knee-jerk have an explanation for you
Right.
why they're breaking the rule and why it's justified, and that like, so you got the kid with a disease saying like, I can't deal with these kids smacking their lips, and then you have a kid who's like, and then so you make a rule, you can't eat in
Right.
class. Then there's a kid who's eating in class, and you say, you got to put that food away. We have a
Right, but
rule."
I have
And
low
then the
blood
kid
sugar.
says- yeah, and the kid's like, I got this, I got that.
Right.
Like, I have to do this. I didn't get a chance to eat, and I'm not going to be able to pay attention. Like, so there's no, like, high school is just like, there's no winning.
Yeah.
You'll never win.
Yeah. That's always been the case, I think. It's just
Yeah.
changed and it's
They have
more
a lot
absurd.
more-
I
now
was
than
a
ever,
fucking
but-
pain in the ass in
They
high
have
school.
a lot
That's
more
for sure.
weapons now. I feel
Yeah.
like the average kid has a lot more vocabulary
Yeah.
of, like, why they don't have to do something.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think kids now also, and this is partly, there's like a whole cultural thing because like around like the power of kids to change society, and which I think has mostly come around because like the people who have power are like, well, we can't do anything. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want us to do? And then
Yeah.
they're like, look at the children.
Yeah.
They're gonna,
Kids are-
Greta Thunberg, and you're just like, fucking pass a law or like do
Right.
something, and they're
Right.
just like, well, we can't, but like this kid will have a
Right.
very
Just
inspirational
We have
one
an
speech.
day.
autistic fairy that
Yeah.
flies around and
Right.
makes things
Like-
feel
Right.
better.
The next
Yeah.
generation will solve the problem.
But
It's like,
so then I
good
think
plan.
like, but so then
Good
I think
bailout
that's
plan.
that it's like 2 for 1. It's like
yeah.
you kind of like you empower. It's also just grooming a new generation of children to like figure out how they can or to like feel empowered even though they have no power to do anything.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I mean? There's like a whole system at play that's like a new kind of reality that we're dealing with, I think.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like
Yeah,
to me.
I
advertising-
feel like that was to go back to what kids are doing today. I feel like that was my tactic when I got caught breaking a rule, though.
Yeah,
is
but
to
you were
say,
a
this is
nerd.
why I'm doing this.
You were a nerd. And
I was a nerd.
That used to be like I feel like an esoteric nerd technique to be like, I'm gonna out rationalize you here, or at least confuse you into a circle where my punishment will be like somewhat mitigated. But now it's like the instant initial reaction of any kid, you know?
Right.
I mean, the internet also used to be the purview of total nerds.
Yeah.
And difficult to pull off. But in the same way, I feel like now excuses have become like techno-fied.
Not always excuses. I would accept my punishment. I just want you to understand why I did this, because then I'm a hero. I've been forced into breaking the rules, and I accept the consequences for doing it. Everybody can look up to me.
Well, everyone has to look up to you anyway. You're so
That
tall.
is absolutely
Not at that time.
Oh, really?
I was still short when I was a child.
I just assumed that you
For
were
your age or
always been
for
6'8".
anyone?
Oh, no, for the people with whom I am getting in trouble.
Right, right.
Children never got mad at me when I was a kid about breaking the rules that I know of.
So
But I
much-
would talk to children
so
when I
these
was a
kids
child.
were seething. They were seething in anger.
Why won't
They
you
kept
just
it to
follow the
themselves.
rules?
Talking about empowerment is funny.
He
like,
goes outside.
grooming kids
Yeah.
to feel empowered when they're not given any power. So advertising is almost
This is
entirely
outside
based around
outfit.
that now. It feels like
Mhm.
He's
It's
so
like-
lucky.
participating in
They both do.
even down to bands, where it's like if you come to this show of this band, you are empowering yourself. Like pay $10 to go to the Crown tonight if you want to be empowered. And then all the way up to like, Colgate, like empower yourself with this new toothpaste. It's a really interesting like non-quantity.
Well, I feel every generation you have to kind of like rejigger how you make people feel like they're actually doing something. Like the Gen Xers
We
needed
need a new
a
treadmill.
different, like the Boomers needed a thing. The Gen X, like I think it's starting with the Boomers with the like consumerism boom. It's like the Boomers needed a certain way, the Gen Xers needed a certain way, like we needed a certain way, and then now you have this like new kind of way which is like you're an activist. Everyone's an activist, and then you feel like I'm, but it's like activism is just like arguing on the internet or whatever. So that just like translates
that's
to like
crucial.
IRL.
Yeah, I was shocked when the war started that like to see people like once again. I guess I thought less people would like descend into the lecturing and like finger wagging.
Wow.
And I'm only on Instagram now. That's the only thing that I'm on. And I was like kind of shocked where I was like, no one like was reformed or like rehabilitated since the last time we had a huge moral outrage.
No, lessons are never learned.
I would think that
Or,
some people
like-
would be fatigued, just like
Yeah.
fucking fatigued by it, and be like, oh,
No, because it's
I kinda feel the
something
opposite.
to like live for. It's the opposite
It's
of fatigue.
energizing.
It's the opposite of fatigue. We are fatigued.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
if
very
they are like fucking psyched.
They're living.
You know what I mean?
I was
They're
surprised
living.
at how well behaved people are being.
Oh,
about
really?
this war. I expected them to
being-
be worse.
Connor, they're being terrible. You just don't see. I don't know. You're not on Twitter.
You have a very well
Oh, I know.
curated.
Twitter's not
curated-
really a great gauge of how people are being, though.
I've been
It's
taking
a
my
gauge of how
temperature
some
at
people
YouTube.
are
It's a gauge of how extremely online people are being.
Yeah, it's weird though. It's like it's such a feedback loop because all of those people create journalism. So if you go
Yeah.
to the news and
Yeah,
read news
that's the
and
thing.
watch TV,
A lot of the
honestly-
people being the most insane on there are fucking journalists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
then-
true.
And it's also funny that so much news is like we summarize a thing that's going on and then we tell you 6 tweets that happened.
Yeah.
So-
yeah,
so
yeah.
much
The
news now
tweets
is just
are
like, here's
embedded
the-
in the
Here's the
article.
thing people are arguing about on Twitter. And
Yeah.
there's not an article. It's just like here are a bunch of
Or
tweets.
no, yeah. Here's 6 tweets
It
to
drives me
support the
fucking
general
nuts.
point
I
of
hate
this.
that shit.
It's
Yeah,
awful.
it's a weird
It's
rhetorical
weird, 'cause
device.
it used to be like a joke that BuzzFeed like pretended it was journalism and did things like that. But now it's like you see it on TV. Like you turn on the
Or
CNN.
It happens,
Everybody's talking about
it happens
Twitter.
with Reddit
They'll
threads
read
too.
tweets,
Like if there's
yeah.
like a Reddit thread that's popping off, some like
Reddit's better than
journalists will
Somebody
be-
told me. Someone was like, "Oh, if you want to learn about the history of Ukraine, you should read this Reddit thread."
Amazing.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, I might just check that out."
Amazing.
Like, I think I'm gonna read a book. Thanks.
The
Like,
whole-
because I had just said like, when something pops up in the news and everyone's talking shit about it, especially if America's involved, I read like an older book about the history of that place. And she was like, "Yeah, read this Reddit thread."
This older.
It's amazing how
this
everyone's.
older Reddit thread.
It's amazing how psyched everyone is to just like do the Cold War again.
Yeah.
It's like amazing.
It's
Everyone's so into it.
It's so crazy.
But you know
I
what?
had
It's
a-
because
It's great for
it's.
the
I mean, it's
economy.
the
It
same as
never, like,
it's the
went
same as
away.
any other thing. It's because it gives you an excuse to not think about how our country is crumbling.
Mm-hmm.
well, what it,
Anything that's that, you're like, oh, well, they're way more fucked.
well,
than us.
it's a here's for me. It's a mixture. I think it's a mixture of a couple things. One, two like ethnically, historically white areas are in a conflict, and America isn't physically involved yet, so we can be excited about it, and we can think about and we can watch like the Ukrainian people who have never fucking held a gun before just being given guns and being forced to stay in the country, so they have to like fight against like people they are probably closely related to,
Yeah.
who have invaded their area, who probably don't even want to kill them, and they're gonna like be killing each other.
It's, yeah. and
So we can get excited about that. And then the fact that most people's understanding of history comes from 80s movies. So they're like,
At best.
most people literally think that Russia is communist, or
Yeah.
that Putin wants Russia to be communist,
Yeah.
or he wants the USSR to come back. And it's like, what the fuck are you fucking kidding me? This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, literally, like, this is sad because America had no reason to actually end the Cold War. There was no, like, campaign to, like, change people's minds about Russians or be like, oh, this is what happened. This was what was actually going on at this time. This was all just propaganda. Like, no, it's just like, oh, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, because that is not good for our image.
No, yeah.
Like, we don't talk about things that are bad for our image.
Well, now too, it's like you'll see these like video interviews with these Ukrainian like battalion leaders who are like fascists. Like they're they're actual fascists, and the American media will just like fawn over them. And,
You're right.
And somebody will be like, "Yo, he has like a Nazi like emblem on his sleeve. Like there's a portrait of a famous fascist behind this guy that you're interviewing."
Right.
You know, Facebook. And
We
the
love
government
them, though.
both
We like-
removed Azov
Yeah, we
Battalion
do.
off of no-go lists. Like Facebook
Right.
had them as a
Right.
verified fascist group, and then took it off when it
Yeah.
created. And then the U.S. government did the same thing
Yeah.
as far as sanctions. And like you weren't allowed to. I can't
Yeah.
remember the exact rule, but it was like some. You're not
We
allowed to
always
sell something.
bankroll fascists. We love to bankroll
They're our
fascists. We
favorites.
love giving fascist
favorites.
weapons. Like, we love it.
Our-
we love
our
that.
best
That's our
friends-
whole thing.
Our best friends are, like, Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Yeah.
Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah.
What
It's
the
also-
fuck?
it's
It's interesting to think of this war as the Cold War because we've already watched that movie.
Yeah.
We win the Cold War. So, like, it's a huge comfort to think of this, even though
Yeah.
this is not the Cold
Right.
War.
Right.
This is a hot war that we are quickly
Yeah.
being drawn into.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is an actual war.
Yeah.
And it is easily argued that we precipitated.
Easily.
Yeah.
It works out so good for us.
That's
Fucking
what I-
Nord
yeah.
Stream 2's gone. That's a huge fucking deal.
That's not gonna
Yeah.
be gone. We're not. I
Nord
don't
Stream
think.
2's already gone.
I think it's on pause. I don't think they're
It's
not.
defunded.
They're
It's
not
defunded.
gonna not do it. They're gonna do it.
I
We're
don't
not
know.
gonna take that away from Germany. We're not. No.
I don't know.
No. We don't fuck with like Europe's like energy supply.
But if we can sell them the oil, if we can frack the oil and sell to Germany instead, because they're not allowed to get it from Russia, how fucking sweet is that?
I just doubt it. I just doubt that would happen.
I mean, yeah.
I think there might be people though in the government who think that's a ballsy, risky move they can go for. You know, like I don't know that. It
I
might not be
really think
realistic,
at
but
the
I
end
don't
of the
think those
day,
people
I
are balls.
really
Maybe
think this
Ted
is about
Cruz.
vibes. I really think it's like a
Vibes war.
vibe war.
It's because
Yeah.
the vibe shift is coming.
Yeah.
It's like it's just like a big dick, whatever. Like
Also, don't we think that this war almost happened here last year?
meaning.
Would the Russia invaded us?
No, just like white dudes are afraid of losing white dude power,
Oh.
and this is just the head of that pimple that is a global phenomenon. Like, also, I think that it also has something to do with coinciding with the end of pandemic. That like we're like pandemic's over, invade.
It's a
you
wartime.
know?
You know, I never
I
knew
don't
that the
know,
word
really.
slave came from the word Slav.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that till
I didn't either.
Yeah, that's why it's really funny because I have heard all this stuff about like trying to frame Ukraine war as a whiteness thing, and then that was like trying to pick that apart was where I found out the word slave is about Slavs.
How are they trying to frame it as a whiteness thing?
I mean, everybody is trying to make it about whatever their issue was the week before
Right.
the thing happened. So
Well,
there's people like
Because that's their only framework of analysis.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way that they can
and
look
everyone's
at it.
is invested in the idea that like the whole world gets remarkably better when this one issue is picked. You know, is like once we get this one thing, then it's just easy street to utopia. Because I mean, everything's too complex and interrelated to think about solutions that are realistic.
The wildest thing that I think all of the people are like fawning over the Ukrainian president, which is like super weird.
Amazing.
But it's
He's
also
a clown.
it's also insane that
He's
he
a
was,
literal clown.
He was in a
An
TV show about a regular guy who becomes the president
Yeah.
of the Ukraine that ended when he became the president of the Ukraine. Or it's just Ukraine, not the Ukraine. But like it's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
Because that's like I mean that shit that shit basically happens in America, but it's like the most obvious version of that. So fucking weird to me.
And
It was
Awesome.
really fun
It's
to watch
awesome.
a bunch of American comedians sit around right after this happened and be like, fuck, I know what comedians like. I know what craven cowards we are. But look at what this comedian is doing. What does that say about me? I gotta examine myself.
Well, and then we also have right now. There's this whole thing with like so many of the Democrats or like Jen Psaki specifically saying that she got into politics because of the West Wing,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is like it's like yeah, obviously you did.
Wow,
and-
you can't say that out loud. Like,
Right, but
what the
that's
fuck?
like-
That is crazy
But
that
that's such
someone
a-
said that out loud.
It's such a clear
I mean, it's like,
thing.
oh yeah, of course you did, but still, it's like
It's like
holy
the Democratic
shit.
Party.
Like, oh my
The
god.
Democratic Party is basically
What the fuck?
They're like, what can we do?
Like,
to
I
come off
really want to
like
be in an
the
Aaron
West Wing?
Sorkin
Yeah.
show.
Exactly.
What the
that's,
fuck?
That's the Democratic fever dream, is to be this like idealized
Bureaucrat.
like, perfect bureaucracy that everybody can get behind because they're like real people, and that's just like
And
it's fucking
everybody in the
insane.
world's a yuppie.
Yeah, like so
Right.
fucking weird.
You guys remember that part of Holy Mountain where they do the planets? I feel like
Yeah.
I brought this up before, but this was like the most on the nose version of that ever. Like they do the war planet, and they talk about how they're like it all starts with a toy factory, and they're like figuring out what war they want to have in 20 years, and then they show development of like toys and comic books to make kids hate the enemy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like this felt like, I mean, in
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know about
totally.
that Canadian show, but that's like such an American story too. It really feels like, you know, we had this whole run up to like hate the Russians. Russians are
Yes.
fucking with us. Russians are fucking with us.
Yeah.
And then boom, here's a way to like let that like load fly. You know,
That's
It's just-
exactly what
So
I've been
they really-
thinking. Yeah.
They really
But
fucked-
like, but the reality is like we've been fucking with them.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we've been like poking them like this for like 20 years. Like
Right.
I had a Lyft driver the other day who was an angry Russian,
Oh.
which was really weird. Because I didn't know at first. He just started talking about the war, and I openly was talking about the war as well. And then he was screaming at me.
for not understanding the issue.
Well, all I said was, I think that the only way this war will end is if one of the Russians kills Putin. And he's like, no one would kill Putin. They love Putin. And I was like, they look terrified of him on television. And then he started screaming about me. A whole country loves his king. Is really, really intense.
It's also, I mean, like there's all this sort of
He was like really patriotic and like.
Yeah, he was into Putin.
wow.
That's consistent.
That's what I've heard. from
Because
the
we have a lot of Russian mob down in the Belvedere.
Russians. Yeah.
The Belvedere.
Yeah.
That's yeah, fucking weird. I mean, there's also a lot of like
They
sort
killed
of
that guy
cultural-
from that Agora cult in the Belvedere.
I've never heard that
They-
theory.
what?
Yeah, the Russian mob threw him off the roof of the Belvedere.
Damn.
Oh no, they hit him with a car and then placed him there. It's like what we.
Oh, is that what?
Yeah, they
Well,
ran
at some point they didn't place him there because the only way to get to that place is if they hit him with a car first. They then threw his body.
It
off
looks
the
like his
No,
body
no,
definitely went over the
No,
top.
no,
It went through the roof of another building.
You gotta look up the new scholarship on this case because it's pretty amazing. They made the hole to create the illusion that he fell off, but they actually carried him.
That is straight up a Murder She Wrote plot.
from the,
Like,
This is the
100%.
opening
Let's get Angela
episode of the new
Lansbury
season
over
of
here.
Mysteries,
yeah,
Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, no, like if you.
Huh?
What's the Agora cult?
It's a publishing sort of. It's a Baltimore-based publishing empire. Tim's worked. For
I've
them,
worked.
yeah.
I've worked for them. So
I forgot
it's
about
Swindle
them.
old people out of their money by pretending to sell them stock tips and shit.
really,
Oh,
it's
okay.
really interesting company. Yeah, I mean, not interesting good. It's just interesting. Yeah, as
Yeah.
in how
They
what it
own
is now and
amazing
how it's
property
built up.
in the middle of downtown.
Yeah,
I
they
only
own
know
lot
a
of the
little bit
property
about
down
them, but I met someone once who was like, whose sister worked there or something. and-
Allison's sister worked there.
No, it wasn't Al. It was
Okay.
somebody
A lot
I
of
was
people
working with at
I know
work.
kind of a lot of people who work there just because, like,
But it
if
was
you
like-
look for a writing job in Baltimore,
Yeah.
like they're the one that's hiring.
It was someone who worked at a museum, and they were telling me that their sister worked there, and they were just talking about how they were just talking about how much their sister loved this company and like this whole thing, like in this way, and I was just like, whoa, this is kind of like creepy.
Yep.
I had
It's
I
all the
didn't
kinds
really
of
know.
creepy you think it is.
Yeah,
I was at
yeah.
school with one person who really liked working. Like,
Yeah.
She was really.
So
into
I
it.
worked there out of college pretty much, and they were like, all right, we're just going to sit you in an office. You're going to write all day. We're going to fly you pretty much all over the place too. Like, it's just like first real job ever. They're like, all right, we'll go to Paris and we'll pay for the whole thing. Christmas time comes along. Here's like an iPod and like $2,000 bonus. I'm like, never received any treatment like this in my life. And I was just like, yeah, okay, great. This is great. Like, it was good. I did quit for no reason. Pretty much.
Nice.
Pretty much to do theater. Like, that's around the time I met.
That's great.
Yeah, all those people. Yeah, it was a wild experience. And the company itself is like hardcore libertarian, and I think involved in like South American like property and drug rings and things like that. That's just kind of, there's no evidence, but a lot of the research I've done since then kind of like points to that. And I worked there when that
Yeah.
suicide happened, and they let us all out, and there was this like company-wide email. It's like, talk to no one about this. Like, you're gonna get questions. Like, this is, like, here's the facts that we have. But like, no one, like, just everything was on lockdown for a few days.
Since
it's always haunted my imagination.
They've been doing more investigations into it. They had a new
Someone wrote a book about
coroner
it.
look at the body and said like the injuries are totally consistent with getting run over by a car and completely not consistent with a fall from a height.
What year was this?
Injured.
2000.
That's not how he. They could have
Yeah.
thrown his body, but his body couldn't be injured because he's dead and has already.
Your
sustained
your
injury.
bones still break when you fall if you're dead.
But his bones were broken already.
No. The bones that aren't broken is the key. The ones in his legs that aren't broken.
In jazz, it's the
Like,
bones
you
don't.
have to look up what the person who looked at the
Murder
body said
jazz.
because he did like.
But they're no longer rigid. Now they're broken bones and they can just flop around.
But they're not like. But he
They
had
don't-
bones in his legs that weren't broken when he was lying.
All of
That's
his bones were
fine
broken.
because
No.
the other bones aren't making the same twisty motions that they would have if they weren't broken. They're doing different things.
I don't think that there's anything medical about what you're saying.
No, it's
The twisty broken bones
saying
aren't
that-
doing the twisties.
Okay, like a pencil, and then a pencil that is like half broken and held together by just like a couple fibers of the wood are going to behave differently if I throw them both across the room.
Okay, so here's the thing. The hole makes it so that he has to fall like this, but only one of his legs are broken, and it's not a break consistent with a fall. Like,
Okay.
it's a break consistent with being run over. And so if the body is dead and it's falling, the bone in the leg that's not broken is still facing down because gravity's pulling it. But like the fact that he doesn't have life doesn't change the composition of the bone. It's still got to break when he hits the
He had to be upright to the whole.
to make that hole. Yeah.
I think you're
The
thinking
hole's
about it
upright.
weird. I mean, I think there's other ways to like pursue this too. It's like, first of all, they don't keep great records of who goes into the Belvedere building. They never have. Like, anyone could theoretically walk in there.
Yeah.
I've walked in there.
Yeah, because the owl bar's there. Like, you
But
just go.
to access the roof is another matter entirely. And how to know how to get to the roof of such an old Beaux-Art building, like how to navigate and get your way up there, seems very odd, and it seems
So
odd
you
as
think it's a suicide?
it seems. I don't necessarily have it. I've kind of, I don't know what happened. I've thought about it a
The
lot.
car theory is
Like,
that they
think he's
get
still alive.
access from the parking garage next door. They come through the parking garage. Apparently, if you stand on the parking garage, you can see how it's possible that they get really close and then they get him down. They make the hole in the roof and then leave. But apparently, the parking garage
I
will
mean,
give you access.
but my basic point is, like, how would he have known?
To get
A,
to the
had
roof.
the idea.
Yeah.
B, have known to get there, right? Like, if you were going to kill yourself, like, why go to the rooftop of a very specific building that is not, and how did he get up there? So it's like, why? Like, the idea is so
He loves
outlandish,
It is,
but then,
it's
like,
insane.
difficult, and then how? Like, and then to
Then we
hurl
have the
yourself off.
Suicide note.
Wait, I have another
Right.
question.
Yeah.
If they placed his body there lovingly, what or they throw him. What is the difference?
I mean, the difference is the height that it comes from.
Right, the impact to the body would be.
But I mean, what if they hit him with a car and then place his body there, or if they throw it off of a roof after being hit by the car? What's the difference?
I think if they threw the body off of the roof after he got hit by the car,
Which
then
it gets
you
more
would-
fun.
He
yeah,
has,
you'd have to,
right?
like, double.
Everyone agrees that's what happened.
I don't know what everybody agrees on. I don't really know anything about this.
I mean, it seems possible he was thrown off. Like, I don't think that
Well, there's
seems
also-
impossible. It
there's
seems like he
more.
wasn't alone.
Cell phone's not fucked up. It's working and functional. That's not happening from a long
Right.
flight.
I mean,
Also, his shoes are in a weird way. One of them, he's got
Right.
flip flops. One of
Shoes are
them's
in a
still
weird
on, and one of them's like up by the hole.
Yeah.
And the,
You could
he's
have
not
also paid
fucked
off the
up.
coroner too, right?
The original one, yeah.
wait, I didn't hear you.
There was no guy. Never existed.
Yeah.
Wasn't a thing.
There's a feeling that it was like
Yeah.
was one of those
Yeah.
stat
False
juking things where they're like, this is
flag.
really
Right.
on the line. We can either make it an unsolved homicide or we can make it like a suicide that doesn't have to be solved. So we'll
Right.
put it there.
Right.
It's like when Ty.
Classic Baltimore move.
Yeah, Ty
Yeah.
goes to the scene.
Oh, the question is whether it's a suicide. That's the question.
The Russians want us to think it's a suicide.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
The local Russians, not
Right, yeah.
Okay, I didn't
local
realize
Russian.
anybody
Maryland.
actually. I didn't realize anybody actually thought it was a suicide.
That doesn't add.
I
up
don't
to
think
me.
anybody does think that, but that's
Okay.
the
I
story
I
that's
don't
being
think,
spun.
I don't think making a hole in the ceiling and like like placing the body there, that doesn't add up.
You
That
gotta
doesn't.
read the new.
I will.
autopsy.
I'll check it
Or
out.
the,
Yeah.
like, the
You
new-
aren't privy to any of this new shit.
Why would they reopen
Look,
it?
It just doesn't-
Angela Lansbury's gonna show up.
This
She's gonna blow
new
this thing wide open.
information, man.
It doesn't add up. But I think it's possible he was maybe someone threw him off that roof. That's kind of, or he was pressured into
Well,
jumping, which
do you
is
guys
terrifying.
know
but-
about the note that he left?
Yeah, well,
You
they
can-
talked about it. The secret note.
Yeah, the one that he taped
No,
to
behind
like
the computer?
back of his computer.
Yeah. But
Did
that
you find it?
no. I mean, it didn't seem like a suicide note,
No,
though.
it's
It seems
really strange. It seems like a code. It's really long, and you can find the.
It seems
Every
like,
man should have a
It
code.
seems like notes. I think is what they're saying, like notes for his screenplays. Like he was an aspiring
Oh.
screenplay.
Then why
writer.
would he write it? Because he's embarrassed.
you
Why would he
gotta-
tape his screenplay
That
to the
it
back
doesn't.
of his
It
computer?
doesn't exactly.
Yeah, you gotta
Makes
read
sense, but-
the way that it's written is talking to an audience. It's definitely in like first person addressing people, and lots of names are involved.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. It's
Yeah,
really
it is.
hard to make out what it is.
Huh.
Yeah.
When you said addressing an audience, my mind imagined that he began his suicide note with, "Oh hi, I didn't see you there."
Record scratch. You may be wondering how I got here.
Really broke the fourth wall in that suicide note.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to learn that the Russian mob is definitely
That's definitely a
connected
thing
to
in Belvedere.
That's cool.
Oh yeah.
Agora, yeah, I think they are definitely down with like mob activity throughout the world, real estate development, and ripping off old people in the United States.
Yeah, you gotta have multiple income streams.
And
so.
and it was my job to rip off old people, and I sold health like natural supplements, and so like what we did is we found the legal border of what you can legally say to advertise something and push that to the extreme past what you'll see on television, or those are different advertising tactics. Like Agora has a very specific advertising tactic that they've developed, is find that border, go right up to that border, maybe push it just a little bit, like push a little bit past that, and then find that, and then send out hundreds of thousands of direct mail pieces to old people, and then the money just pours
That's why
right on.
I
in.
get a lot of
Very righteous gemstones.
I inherited the mail of an old man because I bought a dead man's house.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I see.
the mail that we get is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, and still, like, we're still getting it, and it's just like the amount of things that we get about like, erectile dysfunction supplements, or like this city in Italy has the most virile men of
Right.
the whole earth, and then just like it's so bizarre, like how there's clearly just, and some of it will be like you'll get an envelope that has like a picture of Rand Paul on it,
Yeah.
where he's like, this is a good idea or something, and then the inside is just just scamming old
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Due to a catalog that I ordered when I was 8, I started getting old person mail when I was in middle school.
That explains a lot.
And it's why I got into Rush Limbaugh in the 5th grade.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we get all this stuff about like commemorative coin purchasing, like
Mhm.
I mean a lot of like shitty catalogs where you can buy like designer cast resin sculptures and bullshit like that. But then some like weird like porn DVD catalogs.
Nice.
Whoa.
Yeah, it would like you open it up and it's just like there's PNV. Like you just open an envelope and it's like there's a dick. Like it's
What are
happening.
they gonna get us with 40 years from now?
Yeah, it's already
Probably the
happening.
same shit.
Yeah, right,
Just like using the internet, there'll be some
Tactical
post-internet thing,
shuffles.
but we'll still be like looking at
NFTs.
an internet and we'll be
Meta.
like,
Meta.
Yeah.
Like some technological new thing that
I'm
you can
reading.
barely understand, but sounds like something that's real.
it's so strange to get real.
Oh,
life
like this book.
spam. Like you do, like it's like I get dozens of pieces of mail every day, and it's all trash.
Yeah.
Like it's completely useless.
mhm.
But some of it is very funny.
I just get lots of things that are like, we will buy your house.
Yeah, get
Yeah.
a lot of that too.
Anytime they call me on the phone and say that, and I pick it up,
Yeah.
I tell them, I tell them $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. or
You
make
can
a
have
deal.
it today for $1 million. And they go, oh.
Really?
How about 20,000?
I'm like, $1 million. Sure, you want $1 million?
Call me when you're serious.
Yeah. $1 million, you can have it today.
Call back when you really want to do this job.
yeah,
Stop dicking me around.
sell my house for $1 million.
Like,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
what I'm
I do
saying.
want to say though that the
That's so
one
much.
Russian mob person I've
I'd be
ever
fine with
known was extremely kind.
Pasha?
No, I don't know if he's in the Russian mob, and I haven't met him. He was a customer at the video store. He was delightful. I love him. Slav, if you're out there, you're great.
You just outed him on this.
That's not
popular
his
TV
real
show.
name. He has like 8 different aliases.
Okay.
I don't have any idea who he really is.
I'm just saying, if he's watching right now and he's in the mob,
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he's not watching.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They got eyes everywhere, okay?
they got their fingers on the pulse.
Currently, nobody watching. So
Well, we haven't talked about the book at all, so that's
no,
fair.
we have not. We can.
What if
We
Slob
haven't
checked in and
even
was like,
muttered
"Oh
Gene's
wait, they
name.
haven't been talking about."
We
yeah,
haven't
well,
even-
We are now.
I'm
We're
now.
lost in some tunnels of our own right
Yeah,
now.
we are lost.
We
The
are.
darkness of current events.
It is wild how long they've been in those tunnels.
Okay, wait. So
Yeah, but even like there's that great line where Hammerstone's like, "You think you've been down here a long time?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
you haven't."
yeah,
I
wait.
love that.
I guess it's
I
maybe-
love that
This
so
book keeps
much.
going.
He's
Maybe
like,
it just feels that way because I've been reading the same 3 chapters.
Yeah,
for
probably.
Like 6
Yeah.
months.
No, but they also
I felt that way the first time.
Yeah,
I
they
read
also
it.
are down there for a long time,
Yeah.
and also it gets dragged out because
Yeah.
it gets dragged out because they're jumping back and forth to other plots the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
actually
So, like, if you
when I
just read it
reread
all
all
the way
this
through, it wouldn't be
recently.
that many pages, but because it just keeps chippy chopping.
When I reread this recently, I was surprised
It's
at
a
how
technical
little amount
literary
of time
term.
was spent in the tunnels. Because I
It's a
remember
writing
it being like months.
I guess they kind of pop in and out. Yeah. It's interesting.
Okay, so first book was a detective novel. Is that
Yes.
right? Second book is is this book? Second book, war novel.
No,
Blah,
no,
blah,
war
blah.
is when we get.
Okay. Okay, so second book was whatever. Second book, spy novel.
Yes.
Third book, what would we call this? Is it horror?
Is Trivion showing up in this one and the next one?
I believe they show up in this one.
Yeah, I guess I don't.
They
really-
arrive.
I don't really know.
They
what
arrive,
it is
but then
yet.
the war
People have figured this out.
Yeah, there is a.
But this section seemed a little, and just because my brain has been like totally in the horror genre recently, but like I find like more horrific-ish things. Not that it's scary, but just like scenes where it's like more grisly. Like we have cannibalism going on.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's, like,
they find
in
all the
this
naked
dark,
the pit people.
in these dark, like
pit people.
shadowy, like underground court, like, and they're all walking around in the dark, which
Yeah.
is a very scary like
Three.
technique to do in
We
horror
are on-
writing.
we're on 3.
Like
Yeah.
We made
a
it.
decision was made.
I think it's for better.
Very close to the end.
Ready or not, we're on chapter 3.
We
A
did.
tessera for the tunnel.
This is a long ass chapter. Though.
It
is.
We're not gonna
There's
get
a-
through this whole
There's
chapter.
a lot to
That's
there's a
which is
lot to
fine.
unpack in this chapter.
It's-
I think this is a two
It's a
meeting
two-sesh.
chapter.
It's a lot of shit.
We have the beginnings of a like a peasant revolt in this chapter.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. We do have that. It seemed a little bit like, I don't know, it seemed a little bit scarier to me. It seemed a little bit darker.
It's gonna be okay.
This is the
Tim.
chapter where
I don't know if it is going to be okay.
where Ock
This looks traumatizing me.
finds his friend, the person he used to know who's in jail, who has broken out of jail, and they're
Mhm.
talking about how everyone's naked in jail.
Yeah.
And then
Elan? Is that
they
Elan?
call the woman where they put the woman like where they keep the pieces. They call
right.
it-
Yeah. A piece from the peace pit.
Yeah.
Is what they call her, Chenille. And then she's like, I don't know why you went. He's like, well, you're naked.
Yeah.
Like you're not wearing any clothes. They just thought that you were just one of them.
Oh, yeah, and then
because
Ock is
they're
like-
not all wearing any clothes.
Oh yeah,
either.
of course. It makes sense. I mean, why else would you be naked? And it's true. Why
A
else?
piece from the peace pit.
Obviously, because you got possessed by a goddess and she didn't give a shit that you got sunburned on the lake. Well, you know, obviously.
There's a lot more discussion of
more often
possession
than you
going
think.
on in this chapter.
We also get a new instance of a kind of possession with Ock's brain damage,
Yeah.
Yeah.
concussion or whatever.
a good ghost of his brother is
Yeah, it's
following
cool.
him
Yeah, that
around.
part is
Buster.
nuts.
Yeah.
Buster. Yeah, we get a new theophany also.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we never seen Echidna before this chapter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Echidna shows up in the flesh, so to speak.
And she's the scariest of all the gods. I
Yeah,
think.
she's got snake hair, right?
Yeah, she's a Medusa.
And she's throwing vipers at little kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really curious because like how did the snakes become real? Yeah, there's some
They just
Yeah.
show the
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
up.
there's
Yeah.
some like
It's really random.
some wild shit happens.
Yeah, that part is really scary.
Snake whistle. Only snakes
It
can
got
hear
me thinking about that. Hera absolutely is the fucking like deity of revolution. And I'd never really thought about that before, but it makes total sense. Who opposes the king when he's being wrong?
Well, and she's a watchdog against corruption.
Yeah.
You know, like and contract law. You know, like agreements and stuff. Making sure that you adhere to your agreement after you've made it.
Yeah.
That's what marriage is. Is that's all their contract is.
And revolution
marriage.
is saying you guys are not fulfilling the fucking contract.
Exactly.
It's-
Exactly.
I never really thought about Hera that way, and it's actually really interesting.
If you think of Hera and the Eumenides as kind of similar girl goddesses in a patriarchal world now, the Oresteia is about how they take, like, okay, you guys were all about blood vengeance in the matrifocal world. Now you're just about making sure the king and the senators or what have you don't fuck up. And if they do, that's when you get to kill.
Yeah, it's easy to get Hera's. I feel like so first associated with being like a emasculating wife,
Right.
And like
A
the
shrew.
domestic-
She's
yeah, true.
Yeah, for the classical people, she's a shrew.
Yeah, or termagant, as the word that will become more important in his.
Yeah.
But and the fearsome horror of that lady throwing snakes, and like that as being an essential part of revolution, is a cool point. I feel like that he's making here. That they're like, as much as revolution is always people telling themselves that they're the ones taking the high road, like it is a thing of horror
Yeah.
to remake society.
Right. That's crucial.
Yeah.
Yep. That's crucial to remember.
Yes. And I mean, how like it's easy. I feel like to drift then into like Me Too and Title IX and some like kind of like woke stuff there. Of like it's horrifying to certain people, and I feel like our sort of like we kind of the polite thing to say is that those people are weak and suck and corrupt. But I feel like this chapter was bringing me to the idea of like, no, there is something essentially horrifying about these kind of overturnings, and there is also something emotional and kind of like ungovernable about them.
It's war.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me think about when he's talking about battles as creatures, you know, I'm not. This isn't connecting for other people, I guess. Like right in New Sun, doesn't he talk about the battle as a
Oh.
creature that's
Yeah.
walking around and like
Yeah.
revolution is a battle, so like the same biology works.
Yeah, and I mean, especially because this revolution comes out of this, animal sacrifice happening.
Truly, these are the old ones. These are the
Exactly.
canonic deities. Are
Yeah.
the ones that possess us in these like all-encompassing ways and use us as big masses of cells in a single organism.
The ecstasies of ethnic or national or corporate pride.
Yeah.
I feel like something that came up for me in this thing, and I don't really know. I just wanted to I don't have a point I want to make. I just wanted to bring it up as a topic.
I like the sound of this.
Is because it's like
have my
and it's the
attention.
title of the chapter, like the Tessera, which is Thetis, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like one that I feel like that really struck me in Short Sun too. The quadriphons or whatever.
Oh,
But I feel like we just don't ever talk about that layer of gods. I mean, those are like old gods.
yeah, Thetis is one of the Titans, right? And she's she's Zeus's first wife, maybe.
Who's Achilles' mom? Who's Achilles' mother? It's not
That-
Thetis, is it?
Tethys.
yeah.
Tethys. She's a sea goddess, I believe.
She's like a nymph.
One of the oceanids.
It's Thetis.
It is?
No,
That
she's
is
the
one.
yeah. It says it in here.
She's one of the Nereids, sea nymph.
And she's the one who's like in my picture of Zeus I have at my house. She's like supplicating him.
In this chapter, Incus says the thing about her being like the one who guides the boys on the boats to Scylla, yeah.
Yeah.
But and it's interesting too. Thetis is one of the daughters of one of the old sea gods. So like
Yeah.
the pre Neptune. Like it was the same deal with like Circe and like these other sort of like nymph or naiad dryad figures, is that they're like daughters of old gods,
Yeah.
not of the like the mainline gods. So there's like friction, like basically the old gods end up in the fiction of mythology end up becoming subservient to the new gods, like
Right.
they're basically conquered.
And the wizards are the cousins of the gods.
But so, like, how does that... I'm curious I haven't really spent any time thinking about it, but it's something that, like, came up when I was reading it, is, like, how do we tile that into the structure in the book? Like, there's this whole, like, stratum of god and those are, like, the tessera. Like, they're like, secrets that they're not, like,
Yeah.
ones that are talked about. Like, they're in the writings or whatever, I guess, but they're not, like, commonly discussed. So they're kind of like these mystical secret names that only the priests know, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, what, like, I just can't figure out how that...
I feel like they kind of took the religion of the world in like fits and scraps, kind of put it in a blender, and then you get a kind of equivalent to the saints. In that, like, you don't know, nobody knows the name of all of them. There's a million of them. They all have their own little thing they're in charge of, and they're all coming from different countries and have different kinds of stories. I feel like that's what the lesser gods are
But, like,
in this culture.
So,
But then in another
so if you're
paradigm-
a pause and you're, like, kind of creating the system of the world or whatever, you just... Like, what's the point of keeping these guys around?
Drivers' passwords. Right? Like the main family are the main drivers of an operating system and stuff like that. But then Thetis or Ganymede or whoever else, those are just like little passwords and stuff like they're minor programs.
maybe they feel like
I don't know enough about computers to really be able to describe it.
Yeah.
That makes
Like
I see
maybe
what
if
you
you're
mean.
if you're consciously trying to make a religion, it maybe makes sense to like steal the flavor of other religions just to bolster up yours in little places like
Right.
crosswords. Where you
Right.
can.
It just like sounds good, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, and also clearly this, like, the 600, I forget how many years they have been in the ship, but like,
It's like 3.
whatever the original thing is has changed over time and stuff like that, and so like the Trivigants only know physics and that's it. And
It's weird that she talks. I was really confused by that business about the goal of Thetis. Like people, the boys have to go on boats, and she directs them towards Scylla.
That was
because
confusing.
That is really confusing because the Scylla episode's in the Odyssey. Thetis is not in the Odyssey. Thetis is in the Iliad, and Odysseus is in the Iliad. But Thetis isn't a part of the Scylla event. Which is the Odyssey is like I feel like our ground zero of Scylla. Maybe even the sum total of stories we know about Scylla is from the Odyssey, right?
I think she's in Argonautica too,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
which is a lot of the Odysseys in Argonautica.
Is Argonautica Roman or is it Greek?
I mean, it's originally Greek, but I think that Apollonius or Tirana, whoever the author, I believe that we have a Roman version of it.
Yeah, I think,
But I'm not
but the
100%.
original stories I think predate the Roman adoption of the Greek mythology.
It's about people who are of an older generation
Right.
than what the Iliad is about.
Yeah, like Scylla's tied in. I mean, I know most of it just because I read that Circe novel a year or two ago. But yeah, like Scylla is like essentially begins as, and I think Charybdis also, because they're these like two sort of like monstrous figures that the Argonauts have to sail between. But Scylla, I think specifically begins as like a Nereid, like a daughter of a sea god, like an old sea god, and then
It's monster.
yeah, it ends up becoming monstrous, and I think there are different iterations of why that happens, but I think it's at least like in that Circe novel, it's because Scylla basically steals Circe's love interest, who's like
Glaucus.
Glaucus, because it's basically Circe falls in love with Glaucus as a human man, and then she kind of like pulls some strings to get him transformed into like a minor sea god, and then Scylla kind of like steals it,
Looking at.
and then Circe like works out some kind of thing where it's like a pool where Scylla is bathing.
Like give her a snack.
Or there's like some kind of like, she like sprinkles some kind of magic
Poison.
dust, or poison, or maybe it's like Scylla tries to poison somebody and then ends up getting it herself. Like there's basically Scylla's a shithead, and it backfires, and so then she becomes this kind of like monstrous figure that has to like hang out in a cliff cave forever.
It was designed by the people who made Doom. She's like a mermaid with snake arms and a belt
got a bunch
of
of
wolf
legs.
heads around
Yeah.
her waist.
And she's got a bunch of legs, and she like such a
Neat.
Around her waist is a bunch of wolves.
Are they autonomous or do they come out of her body?
They come out of her body
That's so
and bark.
cool.
Woof, woof, woof.
That's so cool.
that does sound like
Do
a
they
Doom.
do they have
Right?
personalities?
Figure, yeah.
Or are they just
I don't
like
know.
mindless?
I didn't get to know him when I met her.
They're shy.
She kept saying my eyes are up here.
But that is interesting that Scylla here is a child, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just like a very different.
Yeah.
Um,
It contributes to
Iteration.
my feeling that like there's a slurry of old Earth's religions,
Yeah.
kind of like that they've kind of like used as the mortar for their
Yeah.
religious edifice.
yeah. Well, I guess it makes sense because there's like it's Scylla in the Greek myth is this kind of like she's in her miserable position because of her kind of like childishness and jealousy, and like she didn't. So like having that kind of reiterated into this like sort of like mercurial child form. I can see the connection there.
That's cool.
It's called
Silly.
So silly. Silly skilly.
I'm gonna use like.
Well, should we go through this chronologically a little bit now?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I love succumbing to time.
I forgot my book, so you
Well, yeah, Thetis has mentioned that the Tessera's. We're kind of already doing this now. Yeah, so Thetis is the Talus tells them that it's dying.
It's the tessera for the.
Talus is also
Josgado.
in all that slurry of myth.
Yeah,
You know, that's a whole nother from a different odd angle.
yeah,
That's another Argonaut one, I'm pretty sure.
and also from the fucking books of the sun, the solar cycle.
Right. He was Talos,
Yeah, we get another
another robot,
Mm-hmm.
a better robot. Some might say, I don't know if I'm saying that.
I'm not saying that. I love Dr. Talos.
I'm saying he's the better robot.
Yeah, you're right. Well, maybe.
I just claimed that I wasn't saying it, but I clearly am.
Depending on what your purpose is.
He's great. I love Talos.
Okay, unrelated question here. Incus. Is he in love with Chenille or Ak?
Ak.
Oh.
Yeah, Incus is
Well,
clearly
he has
not
a-
into girls.
He has a
Yeah.
boner for Ak.
It
He
seems
has
like
that
he
whole
has a-
speech where he's like, well, you know, you really want a manly man. I mean, like you do. Like you women do, I mean.
Yeah, that is really over the
But
top.
you know, they never really live up to your expectations. I'm like, whoa, Incus. Yeah.
He's totally like queer eyeing out.
Yeah, he really is.
Amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of
It's
interesting.
funny. I didn't notice that at all. I didn't think of that.
Oh, it's
Oh,
so
yeah.
funny.
I'll
I
think
thought
about it
I was
next time.
cracking up when I was reading that.
Mhm.
We're drawing towards it.
And yeah,
Oh, so this was partially inspired by my email, which was inspired by your chanting of the
Oh, I didn't
cats,
get your
which
joke.
Was inspired by your new formula. So I emailed the formula. What thing you say? Is the defeater of death and the
Is the master of time and space and the defeater of death.
yeah. So mine was you as the master of time and space and the defeater of death. Yama-chan is the master of time and space. This is the it's the panel on Terrace House that
Yeah.
they cut through in comments
okay.
on the kids. And I've been rewatching Terrace House, and there's certain episodes where somebody is missing, and those episodes make it so clear that they're a pantheon of gods. Because like when one energy of that group is not there, it shifts everything, and you see everyone else in a different
and then
light.
in the last episode where they're in the house,
Yeah.
What?
like that's such a wild thing too.
They make
they're
that
pretending
episode
to-
where
Yeah,
No
like
idea
the
what
last
they're doing.
episode, at least
Boys
of
and
Boys and
Girls.
Girls in the City, they
Boys and
they
Girls in the
shoot it from the house.
Yeah.
So they're like on the couch and everything, and it's so weird because
'cause-
it's like seeing gods on Earth.
because the kids don't live in the house anymore.
Right,
And now
yeah,
it's free.
yeah, like it's done. Yeah, so the house just
Oh.
opened.
Yeah.
That's what that's yeah. I mean, I had the reaction like it was gods walking on Earth. I was
Yeah,
like, what?
totally.
They were in the house?
And it's also so interesting too when there are like these moments like when who's Mr. Perfect?
Hansan.
Hansan, who's a great guy, and like all of the Tori Chan specifically is like, oh my god, this guy. But seeing that kind of like, wow, she's like kind of excited. I don't know. It's like that sort of Zeus getting stoked on Lita or something.
Yeah. He's like Hansan's like Paris, because Yu's really into him too. Like,
Right.
He like excites all of them.
Yeah, totally.
All of
He ended
them.
up like marrying like an idol girl too. Like he got.
He was
really
kind of the
married
most together guy that's ever been on the show. I
and
think.
he's still super together. Yeah, let's look him up. He runs like a whole
Yeah.
like design studio.
I didn't think a second rewatch would be that exciting, but it's really exciting, especially now that I've like brought it into my head that that's a pantheon of gods that works really well because they're all so different and they all approach things in completely different ways. And occasionally
How many
they
are
align.
there?
There's so there's Yu, Yama-chan, Tokui, Baba-chan, Tori-chan, and Kentaro. Kentaro is the young man. That role kind of changes sometimes.
Yeah,
they have
sure,
a different
yeah.
young man.
Okay.
But there's always a young man who's very close to mortal. And usually always the
Yeah, he's like
quietest.
closer
Like a
in
demigod.
age to the people who live in the house than the gods.
So it's kind of a
definitely
5 +
demigod.
1 rather than a straight 6.
Yeah, and Yamachan's kind of like makes a lot of jokes about like perverting the kid and
Oh.
yeah. So it's definitely like having like a Ganymede or something in the mix.
Yeah, cupbearer. For
Yeah,
example. Yeah.
They're usually very quiet. Like
Yeah.
they'll chime in when they're asked questions,
Yeah.
but they're usually not like jumping in.
So the reason I bring it up
Yeah, thanks for bringing it back, because I'm totally lost. I have no idea
So-
anyone's even
so
It's a
remote.
great show. Watch
it
Terror.
got me thinking
Yeah.
about little pantheons. And
Little Pantheon.
yeah, and I feel like we've talked a lot about how, and one of the things I realized about little pantheons is the thing that separates a real little pantheon from a fake one is that in a fake one, at least in a fake one, I think everybody solves a problem in the same way. And I think in our very contemporary version of fake little pantheons, the thing that separates them, besides appearance, is that they each have a different originating trauma. I think that's how we are making our little pantheons now. And I mean, like some superhero movies, is the biggest, clearest one, where you have a group of people who all the climax of each of their individual movies involves violence. They all solve their problem ultimately by violence.
Yeah.
Even if at some point they do something clever, it comes down to fighting.
Yeah.
And the thing that makes Hulk different than Spider-Man different than this one is that, for us, is that, well, they have a different originating trauma that put them on the path.
Or a
to
different power.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Like-
It's just a feature.
Yeah. The movies are always obsessed with the origin, and the origin's always trauma.
Yeah.
But a real little pantheon, I feel like, is one where everyone solves a problem a different way. And origin of them is actually immaterial. It's not really necessary for people to have known origins to be a god. You know, like a god doesn't need necessarily a story about why they're that specific god. They just, that's a force that exists in the universe.
Well, and those stories exist, but they're also just like not the most important part.
And they're usually contested. There's usually like, oh well, Heshen
Yeah, you
says
have a
this
bunch
one,
of
and
a
Homer
bunch
says
of
this
different
one.
reasons.
Yeah.
Well, but then there's also like primordial gods are always like just manifesting out of chaos.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and those are your like night
Yeah.
kind of big personification.
Yeah, yeah,
kind of
night,
gods.
ocean,
Yeah.
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 sun,
Ether.
Life.
yeah, right, death.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring this up is because I started thinking about the tunnels as a little pantheon that we have. Like, because in this chapter particularly, I feel like that's kind of what the vibe that is being given off is we've got Chenille, Incus, Auk, Dace. Like, why the fuck do we need a little fisherman around here?
He doesn't last long, but yeah.
Yeah, and then
And they scared him
Hammerstone.
with the.
And all of their conversations in this chapter.
Yeah.
This chapter is very chrasmologic to me because I feel like this is one of those chapters where you could open to any page at random
Yeah.
and somebody's having a discussion about some basic philosophical thing of how the universe works. And the way, like,
Little man.
when Hammerstone talks to Auk, you get one dynamic.
Big man.
When
Yeah.
Incus talks to Chenille, you get another dynamic.
Yeah.
But then when Chenille talks to
It's
Auk,
probably gonna get bigger.
like
still,
nobody
right?
has
A
the
little bit.
same. The connections between them are never parallel. They're always like running through each other.
I think that's actually one of the things that makes this kind of difficult to read, but interesting to reread.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
it
for
almost
sure.
seems like I almost feel like there's parts, and this chapter is one of them, where Gene Wolfe is writing specifically for the idea that you would flip through it at random and just find a thing.
Almost, yeah.
Some of these conversations I feel like exist because he's got an idea that's really solid. He's got these two characters that have very different points of view, and then they can meet on this idea and explore this idea. And this conversation could happen anywhere, really. But these two characters are together right now, so let's bang it in.
It's kind of a jazzy piece of writing going on here.
Sometimes
It really
I do
is.
pick it up and I just like read a random page and I'm like, yeah, all right,
Yeah,
cool.
you-
And I
the-
don't
the-
remember how it fits into the story, but I'm like, this makes sense as something to read randomly.
It's like Catholic jazz, yeah.
Well, but it's also
it's
it's
definitely
alchemy.
Catholic.
It's alchemy,
Yeah.
you know, mixing and purifying different elements to create different results. But isn't that also the I Ching?
Yeah.
The changes in combination.
Yeah.
A little bit. There is an arc with Auk, at least. Like Auk kind of goes through a little journey throughout this chapter where he eventually comes to, I guess, accept Patera. What's his face? Yeah. Ultimately, as Patera at the end, like he needs him in the end to do the rites for Dace.
And Incus specifically says at one point, "You won't call me Patera, will you?"
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we do see like a little bit of that journey there. Yeah, there's so much of that going on in this chapter, though. Like all those different. It's even great to see those like paragraphs throughout, just from like a writing perspective. Like where he just jams in all of the different statements into a paragraph instead of breaking down the dialogue like line by line. It's just like if one paragraph where it's like they said, then Orib said, then Incus said, then Chenille said. Like it's just like all one thing. I wish I had a example,
reminds me of the
but
Bible
it's really
when that
clever.
happens.
Yeah.
I've been leaning into that in my own writing. Nobody says anything in quotations unless they absolutely have to now. I really just like to tell you
Wait,
what
what
the
do you mean?
conversation was about.
Oh yeah, to describe the conversation afterward. Yeah, that's a cool technique. That's
It's good to have a mix.
That's actually a good way to,
I
a nice
know.
mix. Yeah, some writers just straight up do that. Like they just don't have. It's just all blocks of text with occasional like.
Reported dialogue is a really
Yeah.
good way to compress.
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to
Right.
to decompress and
Right.
like have more of a
Yeah.
thing happening, but not all conversations are that.
And so it's interesting. Wolf doesn't do that though. Wolf actually puts in dialogue. He's not editorializing it or he's just like placing it in paragraphs. Like
You actually have to picture the conversations to understand what they're talking about. Because someone will just say something that makes no sense, and you have to be like, oh, okay, he sees something, but Gene didn't say,
Oh, yeah.
and then he looked
Well,
over
there's
and-
also
There's
this
so much
one-
implied action.
Yes.
Well, there's this
From
one
the-
part that drove me insane in this chapter. That's just like one line, and it's like Incus is in the middle, stops in the middle of a sentence, and it says something about how he had some kind of like
Yes.
unrelated presentiment, and you're like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
I was.
What the fuck is that?
I was freaking out about
What is that?
I figured I would come here and everyone would be like, "Oh, here it is."
It's so annoying.
What page is it on?
yeah, I wish.
Sentiment.
Like
Yeah, let's examine it.
An intuitive feeling about the future, especially
Yeah.
foreboding.
And it's wrong. We're told immediately that his presentiment is
at the
wrong.
at the bottom of page 70.
Heaven.
Okay, we're going.
Incus, who had been seized by a sudden though erroneous presentiment, relaxed.
Yeah.
He's talking to Chenille, right? I don't have.
Yeah, he's talking to Chenille.
What was?
She.
Maybe is he
He's
starts
striving
striving her.
her.
So maybe he thinks she's about to die.
Wait,
He's also,
I
she
wait.
denies being a god right before.
Right, I, right before or right after?
right before.
You are forgiven. Name of multi.
I think that he doesn't believe it. I think he's because he says it right when he gets to Scylla. So I
Yeah.
think that he's like, oh, she really is still in there. Is that not the?
That's definitely. I feel like a.
Because don't they continue having that fight where she has to continually say, "I'm not her"?
I don't know.
It does come up a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really lays it on thick when he talks about Scylla, and he
Yeah,
right
it's-
before.
Yeah, it's clearly linked to Scylla. That.
And then she's like, "I'm not her, Patera.
Yeah.
Come on." And he's like, "Uh-huh."
So maybe the presentiment is talking about before she says, "I'm not her anymore," and then he relaxes when she says that.
That's what I.
Oh, okay, all right,
That's what
okay,
I-
Makes a lot
okay.
more sense. I'm reading it. You think the
Okay.
presentiment follows her, and then it
Yeah.
feels like he thinks she's lying, but the
'Cause
way
he
that's-
has-
That's why we
been
get to
seized.
find out immediately that it's erroneous because that's what is happening in that moment. He's finding out that he was wrong.
Yeah, he started thinking about it, and like as he's saying it, and then she kind of pops the bubble while his thought is still forming.
Right.
Yeah, so it's
He
less
kind of has to.
mysterious.
He has to treat her as though she is her because she kind of could be at any moment or whatever.
Yeah, that's fucking with him. Okay, so hold on. We gotta
What
go
a
back.
stinker!
I love-
Stinkus.
Hammerstone is so fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's cool.
It's like everything that Hammerstone's. He's a robot and a soldier, so he's like a blockhead double twice. But everything he says is philosophical.
Well, because he's had
Yeah.
a bajillion years to think it all over. I
He's-
mean, God.
Is he the one who breaks down, or is it Sand? Like how people from different classes talk differently, like they're more attached to present reality. You remember that part earlier?
Yeah.
Is that Hammerstone?
Does he talk
remember?
to Silk about it?
I
Yeah.
can't remember which one.
One
it
of
is,
the
doesn't it? It's
one of the
them.
Yeah.
soldier guys does that. But I was thinking about this throughout too. It seems like Wolf is like really specifically doing that with the conversation between Incus and Chenille when that happens. Like Chenille just keeps going back to like, I'm hungry. Like, where are we? Like, what are we? And Incus is like, like, well, like the days arrive. Like, a fleet of ships. And she's just like totally the opposite. It seemed like that was like a callback. Like Wolf is definitely like just using that in this conversation here. But anyway, yeah, he rules and is philosophical, and he in his little like philosophies, like he kind of like helps you read the book and like gives you like a clue into like what how Wolfe's artistry with dialogue. I mean, this is such like a dialogue rich chapter and a dialogue rich book. Like it's so important to Wolfe here. It's like who's saying what and how their dialogue is differentiated from the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot to say about soldiers, and I think a lot of this came out in New Sun too, towards the end of that book, was that like soldiers maybe as much as they could be personally invested in following orders and like not having original thought or not having like critical thought, there doesn't like it has no bearing on whether or not they're wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can be a person
Yeah.
absolutely committed to the arbitrary leader you were assigned to and
Mhm.
still be very wise.
Yeah.
And like, and I mean, it makes sense, you know, like your whole business is death.
Mhm.
Sanik thinks it was Hammerstone. Also,
Okay, thanks,
Johan and Sanik.
Oh, welcome.
Although maybe nobody right now.
Hammerstone is great. And then so the thing that kind of I feel like kicks off his whole talk about death thing is when he brings up Molly for the first time. Molly.
Dude, what is
Molly
that?
Denham.
Yeah.
He says, I used to have a girl, and then I had to go on reserve. I went to sleep, and when
Oh,
I woke
yeah.
up, I wasn't stationed in the city anymore.
Wait, who hasn't read Short Sun?
Me. You can
Okay.
talk about it.
No, I
It's
know
fine.
it's
I
fine.
don't care.
It's fine.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not upset by spoilers. It's really
There's
not.
no
it's fine.
spoilers.
Yeah, there's yeah, like it's impossible to spoil.
It would
these
only help
books.
you.
Yeah, really. Honestly, I think that having some insight going into it really.
I have a general
makes a lot of it
idea.
easier to
I've
get
read a
through.
few spoilers here and there, like kind of.
It's so trippy though.
Yeah,
just
no, I
go
haven't
in
experienced
naked.
it.
Yeah, it's a really
It's so
Really
trippy.
fucking weird.
Yeah,
It'll be true.
I'm excited. I'm really excited to read Short Sun, but that's just a whole other.
So, yeah,
Thingamajig.
so Molly becomes very important in this, way later in this book.
Mm.
But this is the first time she gets mentioned, I think. It's right here. We can't cry. You know about that? Poor thing, Oreb shocked. And Nock told him, you can't cry either, Cully. Bird cry. I really like this because of the word thing. Like, Oreb says poor thing.
Mhm.
He's a robot. He's not a person.
Yeah.
And then Ock tries to tell Oreb he's a thing too. And Oreb's like, I'm not a thing. Bird can cry.
Yeah,
But
I love
Hammerstone's
Bird.
behavior,
he's the best.
I can cry.
like nothing about Hammerstone is really thing-like.
Reminds me of opera.
I mean, when you hear him speak, there's nothing thing-like about Hammerstone's
Yeah.
thoughts and beliefs and like
Hmm.
opinions. And
I mean, Data.
yeah. But there's like a
He's way
interesting
different than
pecking
Data.
order here.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I spend a lot of time watching Star Trek, and there's a lot of AI on Star Trek, and there's a lot of like episodes litigating whether androids are people,
Yeah.
and I definitely, and they are.
Yeah.
So
That's what Battlestar Galactica's about.
yeah,
Yeah.
that too.
Love bells.
I think I recently came to the idea that I don't think they are. But that's just my
I think
idea.
it depends. I,
I-
think it's
You're gonna be a
ultimately going
problem
to
in the
depend.
future.
It's ultimately.
I mean, I don't care. I
going
don't have
to
like
depend
a,
on if the AI wants to be considered like a person, because like they might just be like, no, dude, I'm a fucking blender. Like, leave me the fuck alone. I
Right.
just want to sit here.
right.
But, or they might be like, yo, like, why do I live in a closet?
Yeah.
Like, I want a window.
It's just whether
We
they
don't
have
know.
sentience and self-awareness
Sure.
is the dividing line.
Enough to merit rights.
Right.
Like when
I think the
when
desire
does God
for
give you
rights-
those inalienable rights?
I think-
How aware of yourself do you have to be?
I think the desire to have those rights is probably a pretty important factor.
Yeah.
Does a
We
goldfish
also-
desire to have those
When
rights?
we're talking about fictional AIs, we're talking about AIs
But
that
they're
resemble
best, so they have
humans in
some
ways we're not necessarily able to achieve. Like there's the whole AI feedback thing where
Right.
we think that AI is more powerful than it really is because we think of our own brain now in terms of computer and mechanical terms. So to us, of course you can make AI if you're smart enough with code. But the only reason we believe that is because we've used the computer as a metaphor for understanding our own brain. So like our own brains can do nothing like a computer, but that's what the metaphor we're using to understand them. It suddenly makes AI like this unlimited infinite field, but we have no tangible proof that that's actually.
You think that AI is impossible, or that they can't gain true satisfactory intelligence?
I think that they cannot gain sentience. I think we will only ever be able to make more convincing like imitations of sentience, but not true sentience, because I think sentience is not like a computer ultimately.
So, sorry, to answer your question about the goldfish, I feel like the reason that we feel that we care for a goldfish is not because it wants to be cared for, but because if we don't, it will die. And so that is like there's an imposition of the caretaker's will onto that. So like the goldfish does not have rights, but because we want it to survive, we have to do things for it. And I think with AI, it's like it kind of depends. Like the AI doesn't necessarily die if it doesn't have rights, but maybe we get to a point someday where that is the case. You know, like a human dies if it doesn't have rights.
I think I kind of am looking at it from a way different perspective than everyone else, but I think so. From the Star Trek perspective, it totally makes sense. They're trying to figure out if he's sentient, if he has rights. Sure, like that's yes, absolutely. He resembles a human. He should be treated like a human. Cyborgs who are developed by humans should be treated, you know, that way. That makes sense to me. I think the way I kind of look at it is more of like, what is life? And then taking a very basic view, and then what is a machine? And to me, that seems to be a totally different paradigm than life. And so it just logically just makes sense that it's literally is something else. Even if it's built to mimic humanity, it has the capability to become something beyond life. We just are stuck in a very specific moment of seeing it. And so it's just our question is just very limited. It's like, oh, is this like a sentient thing? Like, in the same way, a hammer is a living thing as well. But we just don't see it that way because
I think
we don't. It's not mimicking it as well as a robot.
Say, who's my daddy, Picard?
Right.
I think that regardless of whatever is actually going on in there, that people who are interacting with these things do need to treat them with respect, especially if they are shaped like people and are meant to stand in for, like, you know, a concierge or whatever, or like someone who works at a fast food restaurant. Like, we still should be encouraged to treat them with respect and as if they are sentient, because we don't actually know what sentience is. And we can't prove that they're not sentient, and we can't really prove that we are.
This is interesting, and I think there's an interesting twist that can be put upon that too. It doesn't matter whether or not AI is sentient. It matters how much people feel like it's sentient, and that's what gives it rights. If I think that my AI feels tortured when I torture it, and I torture it,
Right.
that means I'm a dangerous person and need to be quarantined. You know? Regardless of whether or not it is tortured.
The episode where they do like the full on kind of like hearing or whatever about whether Data has rights ends up coming down to slavery, basically. Because it's like they're trying, you know, this Starfleet guy is trying to like take Data. He's saying that Data is property of Starfleet, and he's trying to take him apart to do research to make more of him.
Working a mine.
But it's basically, you know, Guinan's like, well, you know, what do we do if we decide he doesn't have rights, and you go and make a bunch more of him? What does that make him? What does that make those beings, that makes them expendable. And what do you do with things that are expendable? You make them do the work you don't want to do. And you tell them, you tell them what to do, and they have no autonomy or whatever. And like, what would you call that? That's what she's always just like, what do you call that?
Forklift.
And or she's like, this is what you come down to in the end. And Picard's like, we're talking about talking about slavery, and she's like,
Right.
And then Joy Behar is like, I got something to say.
Man, Guinan rules. I fucking love it.
Yeah, Guinan's good. I think she's coming back for Picard.
I haven't watched any of
The
that.
internet
Yeah.
indicates that.
Yeah.
The internet.
She's the best kid. I love that character.
Yeah,
so
the best
fucking much.
arguments for treating AI well are for what it means about us. And
Exactly.
Exactly.
whether you can
And that's
technically-
more important.
It really is.
Because also it's like because you have to detrain the tendency for humans to treat anything in this way.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you
that's-
just don't want to treat anything
I mean,
in this way.
just to have like an obnoxious like logic. I mean, is a hammer not a slave to a human being?
Exactly. And that's why you should treat your hammer with respect.
I do.
Which will give it a
Yeah.
long life.
I certainly do.
Absolutely.
Heidegger wrote
I
a
love
lot
my hammer.
about, which I know Heidegger's like contentious, but he's Nazi affiliated in some ways. But
Who isn't?
I'm not gonna get tied up with that. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you don't pay taxes to the American government?
Well, you don't. Oh, you work for a museum,
Right. Yeah.
and you. own
Therefore,
property.
you are a Nazi, actually.
Wow,
Okay,
you're
so-
right.
I hate to inform
You're
you.
right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Anyway,
You're right. All right, we're all Nazis.
We're all
All right.
Nazis, so we can talk about Heidegger.
Okay.
But
Just to be clear, I said that because I feel like we benefited from we did Project Paperclip and all that shit. That's
Yeah, of
why-
course, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
sure, but you
And that's how we
wrote
define
about objects, and I'm probably gonna butcher this, but like
Do it! Butcher it!
because there's like this idea of like thingness and identity and like how consciousness works, where it like a person or a conscious being can be a concern for itself basically, and a tool or a chair or whatever can't necessarily until it breaks. And so there's this like the moment of identity, not necessarily consciousness, but of identity for an object is when it can no longer perform the purpose that it was created to have. And so there is kind of like we do have to care for the things that we have, because if we don't, then they break and they're not that thing anymore.
So could we not then argue that all sentient creatures are tools broken from the moment of attaining their sentience, and this is the fall of man in original sin?
Yeah, to a degree.
It's childhood. It's fucking like being socialized.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
Right, because I guess like functionally, like biologically, we're not meant to do this right now. Like
Right.
we're not like we weren't. Our bodies were not
Right.
put here to read a
I'm
book
glad
and talk
someone's
about.
Because
it.
we've
Scrolling
eaten
while
from
you
the
say
tree of
that.
knowledge.
Right.
I'm not scrolling.
We know ourselves.
Yeah.
So I feel like
yeah.
this is the most like
That's interesting.
the epitome of what you're talking about. Like we were not meant to do this.
Well, we're not
We're
meant to
definitely
do
not.
any of this.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like biologically speaking, we're meant to just be like running around naked.
Yeah.
And fucking
Climbing up
and-
trees.
yeah. Like,
Eating.
Beating
Yeah.
the shit out of each other.
but. Yeah, really,
Really?
And I
We can
mean-
take this outside.
And there may
Tim.
be maybe some things that were built. I think like maybe creating and using tools and like cooking food is like maybe an acceptable part of that version of things. But like, yeah, I mean consciousness and like inner any kind of inner exploration is just not what we're actually built to do. So in some ways we are broken.
Well.
I don't believe
Unless-
that.
Well.
Well, we're not. I
You
mean,
know.
but I mean
For the
biologically
purpose of the
speaking.
metaphor.
Like just for like the frogs are around to make more frogs.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, all biological life is just meant. I don't mean this as a conscious meaning, but like the biological purpose is to just procreate, is to make more of it.
I think that it becomes complicated if you think that people and maybe all living things are the sensory apparatus of the universe, or the way that the universe thinks about itself. There's like a lot of other ways into this where I feel like.
Wait, start again.
So the idea that we're meant to just procreate and that inner things aren't part of the whole like of our destiny, really, I guess what you're saying. I feel like that falls apart if you start to go in the direction of the idea that people are the sensory apparatus of the universe.
Right.
Okay,
That's pretty big.
accept that. So the we start out in a state of if we're the sensory organs of the universe, which for the purpose of this we'll call God, just to please me.
Yes.
If we're God's eyes,
Yes.
then we start out in a state where we just accept that that's where we are.
Yes.
You know, and that's the 10,000 years of we're just hunter gatherers, not trying to alter the land, just trying to get by.
State of grace.
Right.
Yeah.
Eden. And then when we start, when the grass starts to dry up, and a couple of people in Jericho are like, we need to teach this grass how to grow. It's forgetting how to grow. And they invent farming, and we start domesticating creatures and altering the planet around us and thinking that like we're the ones who are the creators. That's when we're broken, and that's society's down. So that's when we start to grow, but the breaking is also part of the point. Like
Right.
God designed the fall because
Right.
God is everybody coming back together, and you can't come back together
Yeah.
if you don't fall apart.
Yeah, you
first.
you break the vessel and the sparks of the light and all that.
So
That's the
so we are broken in that we are the bones of God, and when you break a bone and it heals stronger. Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah. And there's a place, I feel like, there's a place for the inner introspection and stuff to still be part of the meant to.
Well, so in a universe that's governed by entropy like ours, everything is meant to break.
Well, and then, I mean, tying it back to the development of mythological gods, the big ones emerge from chaos.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, so that's like next stage, I guess. Cool. We're good at this.
This is cool shit.
No, for real, we're like,
We're figuring
we've-
shit out.
Well, we've had a few years of
Yeah.
practice.
we've like,
Not exactly batting 1,000.
we've created like a
We're not even
you
stoned.
know, a
Or, no,
real
you guys are
Cosmology.
a whole cosmology. We're a real brain trust.
We're a think
We're a
tank.
little pantheon.
Oh, little pantheon.
Little
Yeah.
Hopefully we're different enough that we're a little pantheon. I think
little
someone could argue
pantheon.
that.
We argued it right at the very beginning when you signed
Yeah.
ourselves planets and shit.
And then we switched them around.
Yeah,
which
we
is
did.
my favorite thing we've ever
Are
done,
we
maybe.
all solving? No, what's our problem? We don't have one. Or are we all solving a problem by reading a book? I don't know.
I think our problem is how the fuck do you deal?
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with all this? How can you?
So I would say that's the main problem. Yeah.
Like, how can you not turn any more of yourself off than what's already turned off? Like, how can you
How
keep
can
it
you
on?
not?
Yeah.
I want to keep it on.
You read books by Gene Wolfe.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
that's
how,
the answer.
how to keep the numbness and the just total surrender to despair at bay.
Okay.
Zazen,
Oh,
right?
Zazen.
Yeah.
I have difficulties meditating on purpose, but I understand it's good for other
But like Zazen's kind of stuff is like doing archery. It connects it to a physical, like a repetitive physical thing, and you lose. And that I think seems like something that you could get really into.
It is indeed. Yeah.
So yeah,
Like jerking off.
yeah, sure. Anything can be Zazen.
Making jams.
Making jams definitely.
Making jams.
Jerking off. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. I used to talk about my ex-wife and I when we got
We're not
married and
back.
were performing together. Talked a lot about going to the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like when the
Oh,
jam
yeah.
is good, you go to the place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
other way to really describe it.
Absolutely.
That's ecstasy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's I feel like probably in my life that's the closest I've been to Zazen. Has been in like a performance where everything was out of my hands.
Well, that was the thing about
Oh fucking.
that was
That's
the
very
thing
Joseph
about
Campbell.
Strange Times People Band is it never, there was the only way to play music in that band was to figure out how to get in that. Like, you couldn't rely, there was nothing else.
Yeah.
Other bands,
It
you
was
can like,
only a groove.
no, like other, no, but like other, it wasn't a groove though. It was the thing, the place.
the place.
It was like, because other bands, you have songs and you can like, just play the song. And we like did not have that. But we like sort of did, but the songs were feelings.
Sometimes
So
having
like
a
if
song
you
is
can't get it to the feeling, there's no song. Like the song just disintegrates.
Sometimes
Or like
having
if
the song is a
Breen
good
gets
way to
too
get to the
drunk,
place,
there's just
though.
like nothing.
One of my favorite
Yeah,
shows
but
I've
I
ever-
know that's
Not
like
that
how
group
you
of
can
people.
do it in
Yeah.
another band.
Not that group, yeah, not with that group of people.
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows I ever played
Current
was the
band that works.
first
That band
Xanadad's show.
no, doesn't work.
when neither of us had ever played our instruments. That was a really I think it was similar to that.
Like the B-52s.
Oh, they had never played their instruments?
I don't know if they literally never did, but I think when they
were
started,
they were kind of putting it together
they
in
were
real
just
time.
they were just like, all right, guitar, here's a drum set.
I wanna
God,
be
what a
that
good
band.
fucking
that was
what a good fucking
God,
band.
They're so
my
amazing.
favorite
I love
band.
52s.
Literally,
Yeah.
my favorite band is the B-52s.
It's
really good
Yeah,
haircut.
I
They
cannot-
are-
Really
It might
good
be my
haircuts.
all-time favorite, honestly.
I-
I haven't thought
They
about
are
that.
they
Like,
are
Ricky
beyond
Wilson's
reproach,
gu-
that's for sure.
Like Ricky Wilson's
But,
guitar
oh yeah.
is like just the best there is, and his approach to writing guitar parts was like, I just came up with the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard, and then it's Rock Lobster, and it's
Darn, 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 darn.
perfect.
Yeah.
That song is incredible.
Dude,
Yeah.
what a good
Yeah.
band.
I've never heard
Great vocal
anybody
performance.
talk about the B-52s outside of like VH1 in the late 90s.
Oh my
Oh,
god,
They are
love
very good.
I'm
You
just
have-
so surprised.
Oh, you've gotta
because
listen to the, like,
we've
their
been
first-
meeting.
their
I've
records.
been talking to all of you for years. And then all of a sudden,
I
I
know,
find
it's
out
all
you're
coming
all-
out now.
You
We'll
know,
talk about
but you know,
music,
you know,
so-
you know, you know
And the
who's,
vocals
you
are
know
all,
who's
like,
up there
yeah,
in that
perfect.
way is fucking Devo.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Devo's, like-
Devo
is,
is
like, my
one of the
second
greatest
favorite band.
bands ever.
Any band-
I need to be schooled on Devo because I've never found it
Ooh.
interesting.
Yeah.
They
Every
are
song's
so
about
good.
masturbation.
Yeah, think about it that way. That
Every
really
single one.
helps. Is Devo
Right. It's
Devo
like,
and
you have my
B-52s
interest.
really like for both of them, for both of those bands, like they just reveled in making something that is joyfully stupid, and out of that grows this like this
I don't
like
even
this
think of
not
B-52s
like they're
as
not
stupid,
stupid bands, but like their approach to it is like we're not taking ourselves very seriously. Like we're just doing this thing that is fun and interesting to us. And if other people like it, then that's cool. And then they write some of the greatest songs of all time. And like that's how it works. It's like,
What's the
They
what's the
let
good
go.
Devo record? I'm kind of like Ryan. Like I've heard them here and there. I like them, but
I
I
mean,
just never got into it.
like honestly,
But I want to.
Honestly, you can kind of pick a play. Like,
Okay.
Are We Not Men? We're Devo is
Okay.
like
Solid.
that's
Are
like
we not?
Iconic.
that's the
Are We
closest like thing they have to like a thesis.
Okay.
And but then like their later stuff is really great too. I mean, like just sometimes just a song like Gut Feeling or Uncontrollable Urge.
Yeah.
I feel
Mhm.
like are these like perfect entry points, and then like you can get into some of the like really weird shit like Jocko Homo or like Devo's amazing.
Yeah, they're so fucking
Devo's
good.
incredible.
Devo collaborated with Weird Al on his parody of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's like I don't think they collaborated, but like Mark Mothersbaugh, like when he heard "Dare to Be Stupid," was like, "This is the greatest Devo song I've ever heard."
I
But
hate
this is-
Weird Al. That was the second half of that statement.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's like he wrote the best Devo song, and it is an incredible song. But yeah, and with
Yeah.
B-52s, like I mean, Love Shack is a jam, but like that was sort of later period for them.
Yeah.
You go
Yeah.
back and you listen to some of the early stuff where they were just like an Athens, Georgia party band, and it fucking
They're good.
rules.
So
like
good.
anything off of that first record is
It's a
just
super band. I mean, everyone's contributing. My favorite bands are the ones where like each member like has like a cool thing that they're doing.
Yeah,
and they're
totally.
all
A
just,
little
like,
pantheon.
chilling.
The
Yeah,
fucking
yeah,
a little
absolutely.
pantheon.
Absolutely.
The fucking vocals. Oof.
There's if you YouTube the live B-52s,
Amazing.
there's that one
Those early
concert.
The old
that's-
one, the black and white one.
Yeah, from, like,
Yeah.
Oh my
79,
god.
79 at the Fillmore.
So,
So good.
They're like
Fucking
in their
rules.
prime.
Give Me Back My Man, like that
Oh,
performance
yes, that
of Give Me Back
specific
My Man
song.
is
You
like
should
that
listen to
performance.
B-52s.
is like
Yeah, they're
maybe-
very good.
So good.
Yeah, that's like I think about that song so much.
Yeah.
And that performance of that song.
Oh, she
So
nails
much.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Cindy Wilson's incredible.
She's
Yeah.
so amazing.
Like everyone in that band is fantastic. I mean,
I'm
like they
getting
lost
chills
Ricky
thinking about
Wilson and they kind of became a
Yeah.
sort
Not
of
to put too
different
much
thing,
pressure.
but it's still really good.
They actually had a dormant period before Cosmic thing.
Yeah,
came
yeah,
out.
like-
they, and then they came back with
Right,
that.
and they came back and it's good.
It's a
like
good album.
like it's good stuff. But like
Yeah.
when they were in that zone with Ricky Wilson playing
Yeah.
guitar,
I think a little thesis is bubbling in my head now about being stupid and how why it works.
yeah, that's I wrote.
Well, that's the name of the
My-
Weird Al parody of Devo, Dare to Be Stupid.
My essay that I wrote about pro wrestling is just
It's true.
about
Yeah.
about trying to
Dare
be
to
as
be,
dumb as
you
possible.
gotta dare to be
I feel
stupid.
like
Dare to be
the
stupid.
pitfall is dumb parody or
Also,
dumb
it's in-
satire.
it's, like,
when you start going into a
weirdly
Family
in
Guy world, you
Transformers
leave
movie,
actual.
and
Yeah,
when it comes out, you're
Like
like,
when you're trying to relate your stupidity to something you think is stupid,
All
you
like
fail.
dancing
The
or
stupidity has to just
it's been a
plug
while.
into
since I've seen it.
life.
And I think when you have like this really clear idea of like this is the thing I want to say, and I'm gonna make everything around it say that thing, like that's usually ends up not being very good.
Yeah, that's not a stupid.
Well, that's
thing.
not dumb.
Yeah.
That's being smart with dumb as the vehicle.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
exactly. And I mean, like Devo had this like unifying principle, but that unifying principle is we are all devolving into idiots, and
Yeah,
that's
Devo.
awesome. Yeah, de-evolution is what's happening, and so being able to follow that really worked for them. It's all about like just not taking yourself seriously. Just
Yeah.
it's like it's dumb. Like we're just doing it. It's cool. But that's why pro wrestling's amazing.
It's the most pure. It's the most pure.
Yeah, it's very pure.
We didn't take ourselves seriously before we broke, right? Like a
Right, no.
We
Yeah,
there
well,
was no
you-
couldn't
you
take
take-
this
you-
is a
Yeah.
condition of Brooke.
Oh, intellectualization.
Yeah, like the thinking is the problem. That the thinking is the breaking.
Yeah.
But the thinking is also what fixes the breaking.
Yeah, there's
Better
a
thought.
conscious
Now I'm becoming fast.
conscious stupidity is it's
Yeah.
a conscious effort to not be conscious, kind of is, and that's going to the place.
Mhm.
You know,
Breaking best.
breaking best.
Doing the best job of breaking all the way through to
Well,
the
people-
break on through to the other
Probably
side.
There you
Yes.
Another
Yes!
notable idiot genius.
We got there. We got there.
We're still not batting 1,000, but we're batting better than usual today.
That's good.
Break
I don't even
on
think
through.
anybody's watching this.
That's
right
okay. This is not for them.
Wow.
That's probably why we're doing so.
Did we pick up a viewer?
now. I think both Johan and Sanic dropped in for a cup of coffee, but they didn't stick around.
So what is Mama Don't Put Me on No Boat? Is that like a Brer Rabbit thing? What is that?
I don't know.
What, where now?
So
Dace says that.
Hammerstone says, yeah, I could, like, so they're picking up exactly how hurt Ock is. And Hammerstone's like, I could carry you both, only I'm not supposed to. Because Ock and Dace are lagging behind. Dace because he's old, Ock because he's injured. Hammerstone says, I can carry you both, only I'm not supposed to. Patera wouldn't like it. Dace grins when we see two of his teeth are missing and says, Mama, don't put me on no boat. Ock chuckles. What, like, I'm trying to wonder what the fuck exactly is going on there. I mean, he's a fisherman. Is he
Yeah,
saying
Da-
don't
yeah,
put me on the
Dace
boat
is
like the
a-
Brer Rabbit says don't throw me in the briar patch? But then how does that relate to being carried by Hammerstone?
Oh, I think it's about
Oh, is
not
he calling
wanting to grow
Hammerstone?
up.
Is he calling Hammerstone a boat?
I don't know.
No, I think
Or is
he's
he
calling
Hammerstone
Hammerstone Mama.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Don't throw me out of the crib. Like, I don't want to have to take responsibility for my. Like, it's joking about how they're being carried. Like, we're dudes. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain.
He
what I'm
doesn't
trying to
carry
say I've been having a little vapey.
So then, okay, so maybe just we'll keep going and see if it helps. Cause Ock chuckles after Mama Don't Put Me in No Boat, and then Hammerstone says he means well, meaning Incus. He cares about me. That's one reason I'd die for him. So Mama Don't Put Me on the Boat is interpreted by Hammerstone as being a joke about Incus. So he's defending Incus, saying like he means well. But so I don't understand how I just don't understand Mama Don't Put Me on No Boat at all. I'm trying to look around its context and I can't do it.
All right, where's the? Give me
Yeah, I
page
don't.
number. on this.
67.
No idea what you're looking at.
Top middle of 67.
I mean, I think, yeah, ultimately I'm looking probably too hard at the wrong part of this. And Mama Don't Put Me on No Boat is just like an old man's joke.
A working man's joke, I would say. But I don't know. Like, I feel like that when I work in warehouses, that's how the people in the warehouses are talking. That those are the jokes they make to each other. But I don't know how to explain the context of it yet. I guess.
Yeah.
And I think because I've always just been like something a warehouse guy says
Yeah.
and moved on from it. Oh,
Got a little dust.
yeah.
You probably can't understand the context because there might be no context. Because it is just little non sequiturs that it's like, this might, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
have you ever, I've definitely talked to old people and they just will like say something and you're like, uh-huh,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
yes. And you have no idea what you're talking about, but everything's going fine because you're in agreement or like,
Yeah.
you know, it means something to them maybe, or maybe they're just saying something.
Or they'll literally just be like riffing on topics. Like when you
Yeah.
meet like a talkative old person, they'll just like really, and it's very hard for me to follow.
So is that what's going on here? I don't know.
All right. So
Who's the boat? Who's the boat?
Who's the
my interpretation of this is that this is playing from an iconic moment in a young fisherman's life, where he's of an age where he's drinking and whoring a little bit, and his mom has to pick him up and go put him on the fishing boat. And it's just like would be a political cartoon of that moment in that guy's life, where the mom, the big fish wife mom, is throwing the delinquent son into his job.
Is
Or
it
you're
possible-
getting
And
kicked
he's
out of
just-
the
that's
house
just-
for the first time to
Right.
go make it on your own or something.
Is it
And so
also-
he's just acting out that moment as a joke, kind of thing.
Oh.
I kind of
Is it
assumed
at
that it
all-
had it was somehow a reference to like getting in trouble with Incus, because he's like I could carry you, but
I think
Tara
that's-
wouldn't like it, and he's like, I just thought it was some kind of oblique thing about like not wanting to get in trouble or get killed by Incus or whatever. Like just
I think that's Hammerstone's interpretation of it. I don't think that's what Dace meant. I think Dace is just talking about the image of him getting carried around by this robot.
Is it also, could it be a reference to the boat that all of the boys are on? That where they go to the augers? That
Could it?
moment?
Oh yeah. Oh, actually, that makes more sense than what I was.
Oh,
Interesting.
shit.
But how did, I don't understand how that would fit though.
Because they're following a priest. I don't want to follow that priest. Mama, don't put me on that boat. I don't want to get picked to be a
Yeah,
priest.
if Incus
You're
tells you to
exactly
pick
correct.
me up, I'll know it's because he's gonna make me like him.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
that is what it is.
Wow, fucking did it. We did it.
Well, then that
Oh, yeah.
means
I asked who the boat was
yeah.
so many times that I answered my own question.
There you go. You figured it out.
who's the boat?
So then,
Who's a boat?
This is the boat.
Who's a boat?
So then we get the
That's where I'm at.
screw from Hammerstone about how society is all fucked up because there's no prolocutor, there's no
No Calde, yeah.
there's no agreed upon source for agreement in itself.
And just the thing about authority, yeah, like
Yeah,
we
I think-
kind of listen to each other when we tell each other what to do, but like
it's not the same.
I ain't gonna get in trouble because like he has no actual authority.
Yeah, and my lord, aren't we living that moment right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been kind of brain breaking. I feel like ever since our government openly defended torture, I feel like at that point, I feel like it's absolutely the most logical thing is to deny that authority could come from that place anymore.
You talk about 9/11?
Yeah, and like when we not, I mean, it would be one thing if there's an
But
element of
also-
the government doing torture, but then it's a whole other thing for the government to globally acknowledge and then justify it and then continue to do it.
You know what the
I
other
think
thing
that's
that
a
I've
turning
been,
point, and I think that it begins with Watergate.
you know another thing I've been thinking about lately that no one ever thinks about for some reason is the 2000 election.
Chads, hanging chads.
Like
Chad.
that was not an
Once there was
actual
a
election.
Chad.
It wasn't even close. Nobody thought it was. The Supreme Court was just like, we just need a president, so we're just gonna like say it's this guy. And like now we're like, oh, Russiagate, and you're like, these things aren't real. Like, it's like
Yeah.
so obviously
need
it has
that.
never been real.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that you guys are like scandalized by like the idea of the integrity of elections. Like, we
Right.
don't have that. We fuck everyone else's elections. Why would we not be doing that to our own elections?
Well, I
like,
mean, we watched it happen.
it does not make logical sense.
It's even happened in the last
Every single
like this
every
decade, you know,
single-
like
Well, everyone. There's something everyone. But I'm just
the
saying.
machines being
I'm
fucked
just
up.
saying the 2000
etc.
election was something like in our lifetime, while we were adults, basically adults. But it's like,
I was not an adult.
or whatever within our like
I was 11 years
sentient
old.
world. But
I was
like,
in college.
and it was so clear that how it was fucked. It wasn't.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
way to like talk around that. Like
Yeah.
it was clearly insanely fucked.
Yeah.
And then we just are like, well, let's just keep doing it. It's just like, what the fuck?
It's like you're in a boat going down the river, and you're like, oh, there's the pier. Oh, there it goes. Well, the river goes this way. We can't do anything
I mean,
about
well,
it. That's
Yeah.
gone now.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it happened
Yeah.
with the Clinton winning the popular vote. It happened with the DNC putting their fingers on the scales to fuck over Sanders.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens constantly.
twice. Yeah, like it just happens over and over again. We're at the point now where it's just transparent.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, yeah, this is just what we're doing. but,
Right,
like,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at is
Yeah.
like it's obviously clear and it has been for like over 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like and obviously you go back to Watergate and like every
That's
like
where
I
we
mean,
started to not trust the government.
right.
Where we
but we
caught
still
them really. for
but
the
we
first
still like act like we do anyway. Yeah, so that's like my point I'm trying to make is
It's-
like it is we are absolutely
pro
doing this shit.
Yeah.
That's like we're in the stage of American
It
politics.
is pro
where
wrestling.
It 100% is pro wrestling because we know that it's not real. We know that it is not a true like extension of the will of the people anymore. We know that it is a story that we're being told, and it's one that we get wrapped up in anyway.
Fandom.
It's
Yeah,
fandom.
it's total fandom.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
and it's also
When
like
you were saying that earlier, I was thinking about that about politics being football
The
teams.
K Hive.
It's football teams too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Republicans and the
Yeah.
Democrats is total like
Oh, yeah.
football teams. It's like Ravens.
I love
It's like
asking
Ravens.
football fans like, what is a football team? What is it about this team that you like? Because the peoples may change. They may change
Locations,
cities.
yeah.
The person
Feces
who
and
owns it
shit.
may change. Like what? Yeah, exactly. What is it that you are a fan of? And they're like, the food.
The ritual.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's ritual. So much of it was like,
It's
what did you grow
they're a
up
fan
with?
of they're a fan of having a thing to care about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
belonging to
Yeah.
something because
Yeah.
they want to.
Yeah.
You belong. You have friends now. You have
Oh.
like a thing to talk about that.
It's all like the
came out
way
of
you
nowhere.
can connect to your parents on it. Like
That's
there's
how-
like,
Somebody on the-
right.
somebody on the
I'm
bus.
a Republican because my dad was, and that's why we like the Cowboys.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's like 100%. I mean, that's how my dad is. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know. Like my dad was a Republican, and it's kind of what I grew up with. And my family went to Auburn, and so we're Auburn fans, and I'm an Auburn fan because my dad and brother.
Oh
went
yeah,
to
my
Auburn.
family is Crimson Tide, baby.
Fuck
We
that.
can't
an
let our
interesting thing
families
about
meet.
our
I don't give a
participation
fuck
in-
at all, but my whole family is like,
I think
we
oh,
bleed
no.
crimson.
Like,
Like, oh.
yeah.
They're
Cool that
obsessed.
there's a
The rival-
football team named after periods.
the rivalry is fun. Like it is. I mean, people take it way too seriously. Like that happens a lot too. Like if you can appreciate football and these rivalries and stuff for what they are, which is
Theater.
100%. Like,
But also, case in point, you're allowed to actually like riot and burn stuff
oh yeah,
when about football games, but you can't do it about like
your racial inequality.
like police brutality or whatever. Like it's
Well,
awesome.
That's changed though. People did riot and burn, and it was like given the seal of approval by the government and the media. Like 2 years
Mm.
ago.
A lot of people got arrested.
Yeah, I mean, like the way that it's handled is entirely
People
different.
hated the fact that people rioted and burned renegades and stuff.
But there wasn't the reaction that there was to say January 6th of like we
They
need
got a
an
temporary
ongoing
autonomous
investigation.
zone for a moment.
Yeah, there was that too. Yeah.
For a
and-
moment.
What was that? Portland?
Yeah,
Yeah,
One of those
Portland-
terrible places.
Yeah, Portland.
I
It was essentially like decriminalized.
think it
for
might
a
have
while
been
in Portland.
Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also that amazing screenshot from CNN of the
I
guy
don't see
talking
that.
about how the riot has been really peaceful and there's humongous burning car flames behind him. Like, I feel like that image is got. I mean, that was a part of. Obviously, not everyone was into the rioting, but it did become a tribal thing where there were like if your football team was the one doing the rioting, there was of course nothing wrong with it, and if your football team was the one who's, was getting rioted against, then this is treason. The thing is, the media is now so captured by the football team of the Democratic Party that
Well, the media itself created its own football team.
Well, but
Like,
we
that's-
also another element of this is that we accept that it's not just that we accept that it's fake and we move on. Like we talk about it openly. Like everybody admits that
It's pro wrestling. It's like
nobody.
It's pro wrestling.
But it's not. We don't even do a good job of keeping the kayfabe, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like everybody says, well, it doesn't even fucking matter.
Well, that's the
every
point.
single person
That's
gets to
that's
that point.
actually
Yeah.
the state of pro wrestling now. Is that 30 years ago, kayfabe was real. Like people believed that to some degree. I'm sure there were always people who were like, yeah, okay, but like to some degree, it was like that curtain was still drawn, and now it's open. And it's not always a thing that like we're talking like like wrestlers aren't going up and being like, well, this is fake anyway, right? But sometimes they are a little bit, and they can play with that in some interesting ways. But that's the point now is that like kayfabe is dead to a degree, but it's still upheld in other ways because it's like, well, this is how the business works or whatever. And so
Could
that's
we
where
say
we're
that
at
pro
now.
wrestling is in a postmodern period?
oh, absolutely.
100%. Pro wrestling is one of the most postmodern art forms that we can experience today.
I've been daydreaming about like creating a wrestling arc where it's like a Antifa and the Q shaman, or like enemies.
The shit like that already happens,
But then
like
they
on
come around
WWE
to
television.
like stick it to somebody else. to
Yeah.
get-
Oh no, it's like
yeah.
shit like they're for
So
a
the
while.
boss?
I mean, like,
WWE
there's
had
already
it.
wrestling characters like the Q shaman and an Antifa.
Yeah, it's there.
person.
WWE had a Antifa
Oh, really?
faction, and they were heels, and they had terrible names. They're called Retribution, and they're like, and it's WWE. Like, it's not going to be good. Like, they had no way of like grappling with that stuff in a nuanced way.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, they're these insurgent people, and they're so angry, and they wear masks, and and it was bullshit. Like, it was a garbage storyline. But that shit happens, absolutely.
It already happened. Okay.
Yeah, like, really.
You passe.
I like the idea that they have to team up with their mortal enemies, reach across the aisle and suddenly like, whoa, these Q people, because that is the ultimate dream of all of us. I feel like is that all of the energy instead of being directed towards the person down here that's across from you, just all go up to that one point.
Yeah.
Person who's got us all back.
I think you mean the Captain America and Iron Man get back together to be like Thanos.
Sure, yeah. That's
Or Thanovsky.
Oh.
Thanos
The Mad Titan.
Noskovic, the mad type.
Thanos Dostoevsky.
That's really funny.
People should pay.
Thanos Lundgren.
We
Fucking love Dolph Lundgren. Dolph
Yeah.
Lundgren's an amazing man.
Yeah, Dolph Lundgren fucking.
I mean,
He's like got degrees in bioengineering.
he's really
and stuff.
smart. He's really smart. Got to just
He's a
hang out-
doctor. I believe he's an actual
Got to
PhD.
hang out with Grace Jones for like the whole 80s.
And he's like the walking embodiment of our fear of Russians. He's the face of that.
But he's also the Punisher, and he's also He-Man.
Right.
Like,
Man, the 80s were wild.
yeah.
They're back, baby. They're back.
Maybe.
We're gonna have Star Wars Defense.
I'm making this talk show where we talk about how it's the end of the world, but I'm going to mostly make it be about how the world ended in 2012, and now time is just like backing up as it rushes against that wall. We're in a big pool
course.
of time now.
Oh wow. That makes a lot of sense.
Ah, wave
Yeah.
pool.
Yeah, so like all the times
Way
are happening
cool.
at once right now. You know, it's all just
And all
getting
the
mixed
shit
together.
that we were just hoping would keep going down the river further than us is now.
Right, it's
all back.
backing up into our
Yeah.
mouths.
It's like there's no place for the fucking shit
The
to go.
wave pool.
And that's why we're doing like remixes and reboots all the time, because time is backing up on itself and we're drowning in, you know, 1960s, 1980s.
The fucking
yeah.
wave pool.
That's a really good
The worst part of the water park.
We just didn't know that
And
it
a
ended in
surprisingly
2012.
dangerous part of the water.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the worst in multiple ways.
Yeah.
One of my dead uncles had
What a
this
crazy thing.
theory about the
Like a
disappearance of
concrete
the
wall.
Terrible
Mayans. The Mayans didn't get conquered, right? They're the ones that just fucking
Yeah.
disappeared.
They're famous for that. It's
Yeah.
not exactly what happened, but
Yeah, he had this theory that it was about vibrations and that they found a way up and that they're actually still here. They're just on a wavelength that we can't see or like experience with our relationship to our senses. And so that's always like that always comes into my mind when we talk about the 2012 having been true.
That's a
That
pretty
they-
wild one.
They marked that time, not necessarily that the world would disappear, but that something.
It was just the end of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you read about it at all, it wasn't about apocalypse. It was just like the calendar. And also, the calendar is round. It's like a cycle shift.
Yeah.
We all know
vibe
time
shift,
is
you
a
could
spiral.
say.
Like,
We
that's
all
our-
know time is a spiral.
Flat
Like
circle.
yeah, we expected the ending to be visible to us in like a finale,
Yeah.
but the ending is not on. It's at another vibration.
We just had the douche read. You know?
the douche read.
Yeah, just like the dumbest possible like
yeah.
version of how you could think of
only
that.
only understanding something in a linear way.
Yeah, just the most boring possible way to
Progressivism.
think about it.
To get,
Sure.
to kind of loop back to the breaking of the children. It does. The douche read is something you're taught because a kid will read something.
this is a thing.
a kid-
Sorry.
A little kid reads. The little kid has to be taught to do the douche read.
Yeah.
I didn't know
A
how.
little kid sees magic until they're like socialized.
No, it's
And
absolutely
get the fuck
true.
out.
When I was a
Yeah.
kid, I didn't know, like, when
Flatten
it's
the
like
hologram.
1996 or something, I was like, oh, I wonder when the last time it was 1996. You know, like, I didn't know that the year, like, you didn't get another one. Then I thought it was just, like, months or something,
Because you
know?
do get another one.
Like we get another Friday, we get another April, like, why don't we get another 1996? And we do,
Yeah, it's
we
just-
do.
Yeah,
we
we're
just
having-
don't we just don't give it that number because that's not how we think about it.
Yeah, we have to have the like the Mayan calendar can go in a circle, but ours can never go in a circle because that means we're not the smartest people ever.
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If time is in a straight line, we're not at the top.
Yeah, evolution means that no matter what we do and how stupid we are, we're still better than everything that came before us.
Yeah, regardless of whether history bears that or not.
At
No
least
mistakes.
we're not in the past.
Yeah. Jeez, like all those people that thought that they were right but weren't. God,
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely won't happen.
I mean, they had all this certainty about science that was just garbage.
They were so stupid they don't even know that it's now.
They didn't even know. They didn't even know you could charge your phone and take it out of the house. They just kept it on the wall the whole fucking time. Fucking idiots. Imagine not being able to get called anywhere you are to come into work.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
You gotta have somebody outside. Or anyhow I do. You feeling pretty good now? That's very interesting that he refers to his corporal as someone outside, or his his commander, his general as somebody outside.
Mhm.
Outside, and it sets off my alarms anytime I watch it. And after beginning of this chapter, any reference to seeing things is starting to set off my alarm because Auk talks a lot about seeing in this chapter, not meaning looking with your eyes.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, and outside, we're talking about outside the ship.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Or the outside.
Yeah, Hammerstone doesn't. That's Hammerstone saying more than he knows.
Oh yeah, there was a thing too in here that Chenille says where I was like, whoa, Chenille knows they're on a ship. A big shiprock box.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what we're in, and we're just as buried as Orpine. I was like, I don't remember this happening.
It's because it's her, it's a metaphor.
Yeah, she doesn't
She
know it
doesn't
in a
realize
literal
it.
way.
Yeah.
So I'm reading this book.
But
called
I
Orphan-
think she might though.
Maybe, yeah.
Because of her possession, multiple
yeah.
possessions.
Yeah, maybe she's
Like-
given a little bit of perspective.
Yeah.
That's one of the crumbs left behind.
Ooh,
That could-
crumbs.
That could go either way.
I'll be back.
Oh, crumbs.
I'll be back.
I'll be back. Don't worry. I'll be right back.
Where are you going?
I'm worried.
I gotta go look at some trees.
Yeah, gotta go see a man about a tree.
I gotta do something I've been meaning to do for a long time.
Little unfinished business to attend to.
One last job.
So I'm reading this book called The Orphic Voice, which is really amazing, and it's about the weird separation of science and poetry, and how there's a tradition related to the story of Orpheus of all these people.
FYI, I might split in like
who try
15
to
minutes.
reconcile.
Yeah, I got a 1 o'clock hard cut off.
That's fine.
A big point in this book is that you always say more than you know. And that's why language sometimes is frustrating and seems imprecise, is because we can say more than, like, there's more truth in what you say than you're actually able to apprehend or comprehend. And this author's relating that to, like, poetry. It's very clear. Like, it's very clear, or like a good story. It's clear that the author doesn't necessarily understand every, like, piece of meaning that can be wrung from that story.
Unless
Yeah.
they're Gene Wolfe.
Maybe he's the one. And but
Or he just understands that he doesn't understand.
Yeah,
so he can play it
I don't
further
mean that. I don't
knowledge.
mean that
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah,
Clearly,
yeah.
Gene did not intend every single thing that we pull out of these books.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, when I saw it formulated with the idea of, like, and then almost, this is one of those books where I'm almost like, did you read this? Because she also talks about how it's true of scientific hypotheses and theories too. Is that, like, nobody comes up with a theory that really understands all that it implies.
Right.
And when they turn out to be true, it's like, well, they didn't know it was this true.
I mean, and this is kind of true of anything that's good enough that it extends beyond your own life. You know, like, and in that way, your language is more real than you are,
Yeah.
because it will exist long enough that it will mean something that you can't understand at some point.
Yeah. And so it's a common Gene Wolfe thing, but I feel like in this chapter it's particularly naked. The idea that when people talk, they're saying more than they could possibly know, and that's when they're speaking the most truth. It's like when people are reporting from beyond their knowledge, it's almost always, in some sly way, by Wolfe, proved to be correct.
I feel like this is an argument for a top-down reality, that reality starts an idea and physical realization secretes out of it, rather than the real reality is physical reality and idea is built up out of it.
That's how I live my life. I subscribe 100% to that sort of Platonic idea, that what we see has to start,
Top-down.
immaterial. And then I'll give that we can affect the immaterial, but I feel like the top of the top is definitely the top.
I think the most powerful people live in a convection current. It's just always both all the time
Yeah.
simultaneously.
And in a way is the point of socialization.
That idea creates physical reality at the same time the physical reality is creating idea, and that it's up and down all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, like the way philosophy works is that you're just, like, the world of philosophy, like the field of philosophy, is that you're just vacillating between those 2 points.
Right.
I mean, we've kind of reached a point of acceptance of both of those, but like Kant was, like, this really important figure because he was one of the first ones to say, like, well, maybe the world corresponds to our ideas of it, and not the other way around. And then you get, like, Neoplatonists, and like now we're kind of, like, in this zone where at least some people are feeling like, this sort of, like, new kind of monism where everything is one substance, which is also something that Spinoza was saying in pre-modern area.
But now we're saying it from the internet.
Yeah.
The Aztecs,
You know?
that was the Aztec science too, was that there's one substance. Everything is that one substance, whether it's a feeling or an object.
Yeah.
It's a different state of the substance.
And when you lose an Aztec football game, they murder you.
Instead of having a war. They have a football game instead of a war.
Right.
But they've already dominated you by that point.
Yeah.
Like they did come in and do a real war, and now they say, well, look, we never have to fight again because we're just going to have football. We'll kill 20 of your guys, or maybe you'll kill 20 of ours.
But probably not. We're really good at it.
Yeah.
We invented football.
Yeah, you might want to come watch a few games.
I don't think it's football, right? It's like lacrosse, right? Like they
I thought it was
basically-
more like highlight, right?
I think it's basically lacrosse.
Oh,
I mean, or like a version of that kind of thing.
But
And
the-
lacrosse is an incredibly violent game.
well, highlight is like lacrosse, but the net is built into
yeah, and
your
there's like
arm.
fucking whipping balls at each
you
other's
you
heads.
throw it at 90 miles an
It's
hour.
crazy.
That's how you break your head bone.
Break that head bone.
You broke your head bone.
Little
I've done that.
Glory.
I want to break my head bone.
Oh, so I was going to say, is socialization at a certain extent is to cut off that convection, is to stop, is to keep you here.
That's what we're using socialization for right now.
You're trying to lock down a narrative.
Yeah, and
Or even lock it to a narrative. I feel like so much of like where we're at now is trying to see everything as following the path of a story,
Yeah.
which is just not how reality works.
Right.
I mean, like stories are great. I love stories, but it's not really how life works.
Yeah.
So
you can't see the story from within it, no matter what. There's
Yeah.
no way for a character in the story to see the story.
unless it's a really like meta story that crawls up its own asshole.
But in order for this to be a convection current, you guys got to go turn around and go back up now. Like stories do totally create reality because we live out our stories, and so
Yeah.
they're definitely creating reality and
Yeah.
so on. Back
Sure.
to-
The right choices
There
to
is
make
only one
are based
substance.
on the stories, you know. Like you don't.
But you have to know that you're doing it. If you
Right.
don't know you're doing it, then you're a slave to the story and you're trapped.
Right.
And that's what we're doing with socialization now is to keep things from being unpredictable. You trap people as
Well,
best you can.
Under
Yeah.
the story.
Well, yeah. I
Rather
mean,
than
if
in
you,
the
if you tell
story.
everybody that they're a protagonist, or that like,
Yeah.
you know,
That makes the story. Yeah, you can tell them a shitty story, but if they're the protagonists, then they're gonna think that that's better than a better story in which they're not the protagonist.
Mhm.
And
Cool.
hence we get our shitty stories.
I think when we meet next, we should just talk about chapter 4.
Whoa, that's skipping a lot.
I think we're maybe at a point with this book where the things that we end up talking here are us
Well, there's a
discussing the chapter.
lot
There is-
of chapter after this.
But I feel like talking about what happens is not as interesting to any of us as just talking about what it makes us think about.
Well,
Right.
I think we should. I mean, I don't know. I'm not necessarily
I'd
ready
like to
to
put the
skip the
pencil in because we only really talked about
pencils.
one set
In.
of
The pencils in.
characters. Like we didn't talk about Silk at all. Like,
The pencils in. We'll start. I think we
yeah,
should
that's true.
start. We try to. We'll read through 4 and we'll try to. I went into this meeting thinking we were gonna have to do 2 meetings on 3. And also, we talked about Ukraine for like
it's
an
a
hour.
bulky-
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's a bulky
dark.
chapter,
It's
but-
dark and maze-like in these tunnels. You know, like we might get turned around a couple times.
I'm sorry.
And
But
it's gonna
also,
take
this
a
is
long
not.
time
But
to
also,
get
this
so-
is. Also,
I
this
didn't
is
notice
not
it
a
until I
race.
turned around, and
Yeah.
then I was just surprised.
No,
I
and
get
then
what
There
you're
I
at,
was.
Mark.
And we're, I feel like this,
I'm just kidding.
we're in this point where it's like half a page conversation between Hammerstone and Ock is like an hour and a half's worth of discussion easily, and then immediately it's followed by Incus and Chenille saying something, which is on a completely different topic.
I mean, I think we should revisit it and we'll see if there's stuff we want to talk about. And if, like, it's not worth skipping stuff you want to talk about just to move along through the book.
Totally.
Yeah, maybe we could, for the next one, I mean, people just make a small list of vital shit from this chapter.
Yeah, just like
Bang it out.
notate it.
Yeah, I don't want us to feel like we have to keep talking about the same chapter because the things that we talk about are ultimately usually not what happens in the chapter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know that we've got to like chain ourselves to
But
that.
they come from the things that happen.
Yeah.
Sure.
They
And I think-
create the things.
I
But
think
that will also happen when we read chapter 4.
we like have to talk about life in order, I feel like, to express the like you know, like we take like Gene's got ideas about the world that still resonate, and we can just apply them to all the important things, various important things that are happening right now.
Mhm.
And it's like, to make the idea clear, there's like, oh, here's an example. It's a lot of how our tangents get started. It's like, oh, so we're talking about the way stories and real life affect each other. Here's a situation that
Yeah.
everyone can relate to on YouTube.
Everyone.
2 people on YouTube.
I don't think
Like and subscribe, ding the bell.
Oh, Santa came back. I'm still here. I just have nothing to say about 80s bands. Come on, Santa. 70s bands. There's 70s bands.
Spoken like someone who just listens to the radio.
Yeah.
What radio? You mean Spotify?
No, I mean, I'm talking about an old version of reality.
Is Santa the one who's not into hip hop?
Did we log off already?
No. All right.
No, I
bye.
think that was Johan.
See you in a couple of weeks. Listen to some hip hop.
Bye.